Our story begins in the city of Jiangzhou on May 20th, 2024. A new spatial rift appeared in the sky above Jiangzhou, and the 3rd Division members engaged in combat against the swarming monsters emerging from the rift. The 6-eared Wolf King, a gold-level monster, remarked that the lowly humans were still resisting stubbornly and declared that eradicating them was only a matter of time. The Wolf King then leapt off a cliff, swiftly and effortlessly slaughtering a swarm of humans with its sharp claws. One of the women realized that the Wolf King was gold level and asked if it was a higher level portal. However, the Wolf King approached her, raising its claw, and taunted her by saying it was too late for them to realize this. But suddenly, someone came crushing down in front of them. The man who intervened assured the others that he would handle the Wolf King and ordered them to focus on wiping out the remaining monsters. The 3rd Division members were relieved to see that it was Wen Yuan. They continued to battle the other monsters, leaving Wen Yuan to face the Wolf King alone. Later, the woman reported that, with Wen Yuan's help, they had successfully defeated the invading 6-eared wolf clan. The captain praised them for their efforts and observed that the spatial rift was a new one classified as sea level. He asked if he was correct in noting that this was the 6th rift to appear in the last decade, adding that, at this rate, Jiangzhou would eventually become impossible to defend. The captain stood up and stated that the academy could not handle such an issue alone. He announced that starting that year, superhumans at martial universities would be exempt from cultural exams, and the admission score requirements for martial artists would be halved. The woman acknowledged his words, saying she understood. Meanwhile, at the academy, our protagonist's class was dismissed. A red-haired man asked his friend why he hadn't been paying attention in class again, reminding him that it would be a shame if he couldn't get into martial university because of low cultural scores. The friend retorted, saying they were the same, and asked if the red-haired man hadn't been sneaking peeks as well. The friend then wistfully mentioned wanting to sit next to the beautiful Yanran, prompting the red-haired man to ask why Subai deserved such good fortune. At the back of the room, a young woman with long orange hair and light blue-gray eyes, Lin Yanran, was fixing her books. She asked Subai if he was planning to go to the academy or martial university, and reminded him that graduation was just around the corner. Subai replied that he wasn't sure. He explained that his average grades made it impossible to enter the academy, and questioned the relevance of foreign languages or advanced mathematics in such chaotic times. He added that his family wasn't wealthy, so martial university was out of the question due to the cost of supplements, and he didn't possess any special abilities. Subai then pondered where he should go. He realized he had crossed into another world and began to doubt whether he had any heaven-defying talent or ability, like awakening a system. Yanran told him to come with her to the academy, saying she had a way to get him in indirectly, which shocked him. She whispered for him to keep his voice down. Suddenly, a blue panel appeared in front of him. Subai wondered if it was his system. He observed details on the panel. His level as an ordinary beginner, his age, 18 years old, his constitution, 4, agility, 5, mentality, beast tamer trait, and talent evolution. Yanran reached for him, her hand passing through the panel. She asked what was wrong and if he was okay, noticing that he was sweating profusely. Subai realized that no one else could see the panel. He touched her hand and reassured her that he was fine, which shocked their classmates. One of them shouted in tears for him to remove his filthy paws from their goddess and asked furiously if sitting next to Yanran wasn't enough for him. The classmate launched his fist at Subai, yelling that he would teach him a lesson. However, the teacher intervened, stopping the fight and telling everyone to settle down. The teacher then walked to the front of the class and announced some good news. Jiangzhou Martial University had just posted an update on their website. Starting that year, superhumans would be exempt from cultural exams and could directly enroll in the university. Students with a martial artist's physique would also see their cultural score requirements halved. The class erupted into cheers, excited by the prospect of reduced academic pressure, and many believed they would definitely get into martial university. Meanwhile, Yanran and Subai remained quiet and calm. The teacher then told the students that if they had already awakened abilities or possessed a martial foundation, they should come to her office to register. Subai found this intriguing, as he had just awakened abilities. He realized that he could now enroll in a martial university without taking the cultural exams. Meanwhile, Yanran stared at him, wondering if he was seriously planning to go to martial university. Our protagonist, Subai, had been in this world for 17 years. On September 18, 1906, the sky suddenly tore open, revealing enormous spatial rifts. Beasts began pouring out of the rifts and rampaged across the world, killing ordinary humans. Armies from all nations united to combat the creatures, and after 3 grueling months, they managed to eliminate the beasts that had emerged. However, as long as the rifts remained open, more waves of beasts continued to appear periodically. To address this, humanity sent suicide squads into the rifts to investigate. On the other side, they discovered a vast, unending land. To stop the continuous flow of beasts, military forces from various countries built bases within the rifts, allowing them to fend off the creatures at the source. This marked the beginning of a new era for humanity. On March 6, 1907, the second rift appeared. On May 7, 1907, the third rift followed, then the fourth and fifth. Over the next century, the number and frequency of rifts increased, spreading across the globe. Each rift connected to a different race of beasts, leading scientists to name the land beyond the rifts the battlefield of myriad races. Simultaneously, Earth's spiritual energy began to recover, and humans gradually awakened martial abilities and powers. As battles against the beasts intensified, conventional firearms proved increasingly ineffective, while superhumans grew stronger. Eventually, superhumans replaced firearms as humanity's dominant force on the battlefield. Subai knew that the war between humans and the myriad races continued to that day. Observing the reforms at Jiangzhou Martial University, he deduced that the situation in Jiangzhou was becoming increasingly dangerous. Realizing that he now had a system, Subai resolved to protect his family in this chaotic world. He determined that the fastest way to grow stronger was to attend martial universities, supported by the military. While walking through the city, Subai stopped by a store, excited by his newfound beast tamer abilities. He thought that with a contracted beast, he could enter the university without taking exams. Looking at his bank account, he hoped that the 2,000 yuan he had saved would be enough. When he asked the system why it hadn't detected a suitable beast, it remained unresponsive. At the store, a saleswoman welcomed him and asked how she could assist him. Subai explained that he was a beast tamer and inquired about the available beasts. She pointed to a black cat and mentioned that, despite its high price for an ordinary beast, it had pure cat blood and could easily evolve to the silver level. Seeing the 36,000 yuan price tag, Subai was shocked by how expensive it was. She then introduced him to a 4-eared dog with a 6-eared wolf bloodline, priced at 33,000 yuan, followed by other beasts with progressively higher prices. After showcasing each beast, she asked which one caught his eye, but to her surprise, Subai had disappeared. Walking down the street, Subai grumbled about the exorbitant prices. He felt like he was being robbed. Just because the beasts had some monster blood, the prices were astronomical. Frustrated, he wondered why his system wasn't detecting a suitable beast. Back at home, Subai threw his bag down in frustration. Suddenly, the system alerted him that it had detected a suitable beast for the beginner package, a small turtle. It asked if he wanted to tame it or give it up. Surprised that the system was finally responding, Subai rushed to the aquarium, wondering if the system meant his father's pet tortoise. Looking at the playful tortoise, he questioned what kind of newbie gift pack included such a small creature. Could this really be his first tamed beast? Though doubtful, Subai decided to tame the tortoise, realizing he couldn't venture into the battlefield to tame a fierce beast at this stage. He planned to switch to something more impressive later. The system successfully tamed the tortoise, revealing its details. It was a small turtle at the ordinary beginner level, containing traces of the sacred black tortoise bloodline. The system explained that the turtle could grow infinitely and eventually slay gods. Its current stats were 1 constitution, 3 defense, 1 mentality, and 1 speed. Its ability was turtle shell defense, and its evolution method was simply eating. Reading the description, Subai was both confused and amazed. Proudly holding the turtle aloft, he shouted that this was more like it, asking aloud how much the black tortoise bloodline might be worth, completely unaware of his sister standing behind him. Su Xiaomei shouted, asking what he was trying to do with Xiaoba, reminding him that it was their father's treasured pet. Flustered, Subai explained that he wasn't doing anything. Suddenly, Xiaoba leapt onto the bag of food. Subai called Xiaoba a glutton, and Xiaomei asked why the tortoise was eating so much when their father had just fed it that morning. Subai realized that Xiaoba's appetite had grown and suspected it might be about to evolve. Resolving to get more food, he left. Half an hour later, their parents returned home to find the apartment in chaos. Mother Lin asked if the house had been robbed, while Xiaomei clutched her last snack, running away from Xiaoba, who was chasing her. Father Lin asked in horror if it was really Xiaoba, and Mother Lin questioned how a tortoise could run so fast. Awkwardly, Subai tried to explain. The apartment remained a mess, and Subai sighed, deciding not to tell his parents that Xiaoba was a bottomless pit. He felt they already had enough to deal with. Watching his angry sister glare at Xiaoba, Subai suddenly noticed the tortoise displaying a powerful aura. He wondered if the glutton was finally full, and if the black tortoise bloodline was about to erupt. The next day, stood in front of the beast shop, pondering the previous night. Xiaoba's erupting aura had vanished almost instantly, indicating that the black tortoise bloodline hadn't awakened yet. However, Xiaoba was eating even more than usual, which brought Subai back to the shop. The lady at the counter recognized him and asked if he had finally decided on a purchase. He replied that he wasn't buying anything this time and whispered, asking if they accepted exotic beast blood. Her eyes widened, and she shouted in shock, asking if he really had exotic beast blood. Her loud reaction caught the attention of the shop owner. The owner instructed the lady to leave, which she immediately obeyed. Turning to Subai, the owner invited him inside to sit and talk. He mentioned hearing about the exotic beast blood, and asked if he could first inspect its quality. Subai agreed. The owner examined the blood, smelling it carefully. His expression changed, clearly shocked. He confirmed that it was indeed exotic beast blood, and of top quality. The owner asked Subai how much he wanted for it. Subai, knowing how much effort it took to extract the blood from Xiaoba, speculated that it must be worth at least 100 yuan. To his surprise, the owner offered 1,000 yuan. Subai stood up in shock. Seeing his reaction, the owner chuckled and admitted he was just joking. With such high quality, the owner offered 10,000 yuan instead. Subai was even more astonished. The owner, noticing his excitement, increased the offer to 15,000 yuan, but explained that he couldn't go higher. Subai, covering his mouth to hide his excitement, turned away to compose himself. Finally, he agreed to the deal, pretending to act reluctant, and told the owner that if he weren't in a hurry for money, he wouldn't sell it at all. After settling the payment, Subai exited the shop. The owner encouraged him to come back if he had more high-quality items, and Subai agreed. Heading down the alley toward home, Subai checked his phone, still marveling at how valuable exotic beast blood was. He thought about how Xiaoba could now be self-sufficient. Just then, his phone rang. It was his teacher, Li, informing him that the academic results were out, and that there was also important news. She told him to come to the school that afternoon to fill out his application and not be late. Subai asked what the important news was, but teacher Li didn't reply, likely due to the poor signal. Suddenly the system appeared before him, warning that nearby humans were harboring increased malice toward him. The system identified 3 men within 10 meters, Fang Yi, a primary level warrior, and Guo Fang and Di Fang, both ordinary humans. Subai turned to see the men approaching and realized they must have set their sights on him. Fang Yi sneered, saying that from the pet store owner's attitude, Subai must have something valuable on him. He ordered Subai to hand it over. Subai, trying to stay calm, told them he had only gone to the pet store to sell items, not buy anything. He silently cursed his bad luck, thinking that if only one of them was a primary warrior, he wouldn't be so nervous. Seeing Subai's expression, Fang Yi laughed and demanded the money. Subai ordered Xiaoba to curl up, grabbed the turtle, and told Fang Yi he would hand it over. He then threw Xiaoba at Fang Yi, who blocked it with his weapon. Furious, Fang Yi prepared to retaliate, but before he could attack, he screamed in pain. Xiaoba had kicked him where it hurt most. Guo Fang and Di Fang, alarmed, rushed to their boss's side. Subai took the chance to flee with Xiaoba, asking the turtle if it was okay after hitting the weapon. Xiaoba roared, confirming that its turtle shell defense was no joke. When the 2 men caught up, Subai ordered Xiaoba to grab his fist, which it did. Subai stopped running and countered with a punch to Di Fang's chin using Xiaoba's shell. He then turned to Guo Fang, dodged his grab, and delivered a punch to the back of his head, pinning him to the ground. Fang Yi forced himself to stand, shouting that he was going to kill Subai. Subai ordered Xiaoba to pull back, then he swung his arm back and hurled Xiaoba at Fang Yi's face, knocking out several teeth and causing Fang Yi to collapse. Calmly retrieving his bag, Subai reminded them that they had provoked him and brought this on themselves. As Subai prepared to leave, he noticed Xiaoba crawling on top of Fang Yi and drinking something. Alarmed, Subai rushed over and snatched the bottle away. He wondered what Xiaoba was consuming and realized it might be a qi and blood potion. Subai knew the bottle was worth tens of thousands of yuan. He also remembered that a warrior was supposed to absorb the potion gradually over a month, yet Xiaoba had consumed it all in one go. Worried, Subai asked Xiaoba, who was shaking slightly, if it could handle the potion. He was surprised when he felt an intense sensation of growing stronger. The system then displayed his updated stats. His level had increased to normal mid-level, corresponding to the increase in Xiaoba's level. His strength rose to 16, agility to 12, and spirit to 22. The status window also revealed his attributes and talents. Talent 1, Evolution. The tamed beast can evolve infinitely with no level cap and can even break through the divine level. As the beast's level increases, its attributes and talents are proportionally reflected back to the tamer. This meant the stronger Xiaoba became, the greater Subai's power would grow. Talent 2, Turtle Skin Defense. This ability consumed stamina to activate, covering Subai's outer skin with a turtle-like layer that provided excellent defense. The system also showed Xiaoba's updated stats. Its physique had increased to 23, its defense to 38, and its size had grown larger. Subai recalled his class lessons, where they had been taught that even strength-type exotic beasts at normal high level typically reached only around 30 in physique. He realized just how extraordinary Xiaoba was, and wondered what its abilities would be like when fully activated. Patting Xiaoba on the shell, Subai told it they needed to leave quickly since it had eaten enough. Xiaoba agreed, and they departed. The next day at school, the teacher announced that academic results had been released. She reminded the students that they needed to submit their applications that day. She also shared an important notice. The next day, A special admissions teacher from the Marshall University would visit their school to conduct ability tests for candidates. As usual, there were 2 guaranteed spots for Marshall University admissions that year. Yanran asked Subai if he had decided where to apply. Without hesitation, he replied that he was applying to the Marshall University. Confidently, he told her he was determined to get in. Surprised by his answer, Yanran asked why he wasn't applying to the academy with her, as she had previously suggested. She reminded him that Marshall University often sent students to the battlefield and emphasized how dangerous it was. Subai responded firmly, saying that someone had to go to the front lines, and he believed it was the right thing to do. He added that he was going to the battlefield to protect someone important. Yanran was taken aback, wondering if he meant her. A nearby classmate asked Yanran which institution she would apply to. He speculated that Yanran hadn't awakened her ability, nor had she trained her body, so she would likely choose the academy. However, Yanran replied that she hadn't decided yet and needed more time to think about it. The teacher then told the students that this was an important decision for each of them. She advised them to take their report cards home, discuss their options with their parents, and be prepared to submit their applications the next day. The class acknowledged her instructions before being dismissed. Later in her bathroom, Yanran goes to the bathtub. As her personal maid adjusted the water temperature, Yanran picked up her phone and called Subai. She told him that she had decided to apply to Marshall University and promised to give him a surprise. Subai, who was busy cleaning up Xiaoba's mess, asked if she was joking. He couldn't believe she was seriously applying to Marshall University. Yanran confirmed her decision, saying she had made up her mind. Subai agreed with her, but distracted by his current task, told her he couldn't talk much at the moment. He ended the call and shouted at Xiaoba, calling it a little troublemaker. Frustrated, he scolded the turtle, complaining that it ate and pooped so much, and that cleaning up after it was exhausting. The next day, in the school hall, the teacher addressed the students. She announced that they should warmly welcome instructor Zhang Kai from Marshall University, who had traveled a long distance to speak with them. She added that Kai was their senior, a martial artist who had also graduated from their #1 high school. Zhang Kai walked onto the stage and began speaking. He told the students that, a year ago, 126 students from #1 high school were admitted to Marshall University, but only 65 of them were still alive. 2 years ago, 98 students were admitted, but only 32 had survived to the present day. 3 years ago, 86 students were admitted, and only 11 of them were still alive. Kai clarified that he wasn't sharing these statistics to scare them, but to make them understand that being admitted to Marshall University wasn't something to boast about. Instead, it meant facing tasks, responsibilities, dangers, and the duty to protect the country. Raising his voice, Kai asked if they wanted to become strong. The students shouted their resounding yes in unison. Kai praised their spirit, telling them he looked forward to seeing their performance in the upcoming exam. A moment later, Subai's homeroom teacher called him over. Standing next to her was Zhang Kai, which confused Subai. He asked if something was wrong. Zhang Kai simply confirmed Subai's identity, then told him that he had been selected for direct admission to Marshall University and needed to leave immediately to prepare for the entrance test. Subai was shocked and asked if Kai was serious. Kai assured him it was true and mentioned that a bus was already waiting for him at the school gate. Subai's classmates couldn't believe he had received direct admission. Many assumed he had strong connections, while others were jealous of his luck. An hour later, Subai and the other direct admission students arrived at Marshall University. The driver instructed them to exit the bus one by one. Once they were all gathered at the entrance, a teacher welcomed them and asked them to follow her. As they walked, the students marveled at a large stone monument in the center of the university grounds. Many began snapping pictures. The teacher explained that the monument displayed Marshall University's motto. Subai thought it was inspiring and powerful. The teacher then led them to collect their training uniforms. Afterward, she explained that the male dormitory lay ahead and instructed them to go to their assigned rooms to rest and change into their uniforms. She added that someone would later announce the timing for the entrance exam. The students acknowledged her instructions and thanked her. When Subai reached dorm room 303, he overheard voices from inside. A red-haired man was speaking about the importance of resources for martial artists. He bragged that his father had acquired 3 drops of an extremely rare beast's blood from Yushan and had entrusted a master apothecary to craft 3 bottles of top-tier body-refining elixir from it. The other students were awestruck, remarking that while their families had bought blood key powder, they had never seen rare beast's blood before. Subai entered the room, introducing himself as their new dorm mate in room 303. The red-haired man introduced himself as Han Jiagong and introduced the other 2 students as Tao Jiajun and Fan Chaoan. Jiajun welcomed Subai warmly, saying there was no need to be formal since they were now dorm mates. He invited Subai to check out Jiagong's rare potion. Jiagong proudly displayed the potion, explaining that his father had contacted many people across the country to obtain the beast's blood from Yushan. Unfortunately, there had only been 3 drops. Hearing this, Subai wondered if the blood Jiagong was referring to was the same blood he had sold. Curious, he asked if Jiagang was right that it was worth a lot. Jiagang shrugged, saying it wasn't that expensive, as each drop was worth a little over 30,000 yuan, so 3 drops cost just under 100,000 yuan. He dismissed it as no big deal. Subai felt furious. The pet store owner had scammed him, paying only 15,000 yuan and then selling it for 10 times as much. Subai silently cursed the old crook, calling him a scummy middleman. Suddenly they heard someone outside shouting about a super beautiful girl near their dormitory. The commotion drew their attention. A stunning young woman approached the guard at the entrance, who asked whom she was looking for, as it was the male dormitory. Jiajun, peeking out, exclaimed that she must be the campus queen. Jiagang and Chaoan were equally impressed, wondering who she was there for. To their shock, the woman, who was Yanran, told the guard she was looking for Subai. The guard called out to Subai, shouting for him to come down quickly as a beauty was looking for him. Subai's 3 dorm mates stared at him in disbelief. Dumbfounded, they wondered if Yanran was really there for him. Subai, ignoring their reactions, rushed downstairs. Yanran warmly greeted Subai, commenting that he looked sharp in his training uniform. Dusting off his shoulders, she added that the uniform made him even more handsome, which made him blush. From a distance, his dorm mates watched, annoyed and envious. Yanran asked Subai if he was upset about the direct admission. He assured her he wasn't, but mentioned that he had planned to take the exam himself. Softly patting her head, he thanked her, saying he knew she had arranged it for his sake. Yanran, slightly flustered, asked why he was thanking her. She admitted she had been worried he might fail the entrance test. Subai reassured her, saying there was no chance of that. Yanran then handed him a small package, explaining that it contained a cultivation elixir she had prepared for him. She mentioned that the entrance test was the day after tomorrow, and she wanted to help him as much as possible. Subai didn't want to accept the elixir from Yanran, telling her she had already helped him so much and that she should keep it for herself. Yanran simply turned around and said she'd be leaving and would see him tomorrow. Back in the dorm, his dorm mates were furious, questioning who Subai was and how he dared to touch the goddess's head. Some shouted to investigate his background, determined to figure out who he was and why he was competing for their goddess. When Subai returned to the dorm room, his dorm mates greeted him with exaggerated respect, calling him brother and asking him to sit down. He was surprised by their behavior. They even massaged his shoulders while asking about the goddess. Subai, confused, asked what goddess they were referring to. Jiajun clarified that they were talking about the girl who had come looking for him earlier. Subai explained that she was just a high school classmate. Jiagang grinned, reminding Subai that they were now dorm brothers. He suggested that with Subai's connection to Yanran, she could introduce some of her friends to them. Before Subai could respond, Jiagang proposed they go out for dinner to celebrate their first day as dorm mates. The others shouted in agreement, saying it was settled and urging Subai to rest while they made the arrangements. After they left, Subai let Xiaoba out of his bag, remarking that his dorm mates were quite interesting. He decided to see what kind of elixir Yanran had given him. Taking out the elixir, he discovered it was blood chi powder. Smiling, he told Xiaoba that it was in for a treat again, but reminded the turtle that it knew what to do after consuming the powder. Xiaoba's reaction showed its shock at the unexpected feast. Later, at a fancy restaurant, Subai commented to Jiagang that the place was a bit much, but Jiagang waved him off, insisting that Subai just eat and drink well. Jiagang raised his glass, toasting to meeting such great dorm brothers, especially someone as capable as Subai. He downed his drink, and the others joined in. Jiagang then told them to relax, as there was no need for formalities since they were now dorm brothers. During the meal, Jiagang mentioned that Subai's connection to Lin Yanran meant it wouldn't be hard for her to introduce some of her friends to them. Subai agreed, but added that he might need Jiagang's help with something else. Placing a small bottle of beast's blood on the table, Subai casually mentioned it wasn't a big deal, just some rare beast's blood he needed to sell. Jiajun's eyes widened as he examined the bottle, noticing it was of even higher quality than the blood Jiagang had shown earlier. Jiagang inspected it closely and admitted he'd never seen beast's blood of such a high grade. Jiagang confessed that he couldn't accurately estimate its value and suggested calling his father for advice. Subai agreed, telling Jiagang there was no rush and they could finish eating first. A moment later, Jiagang called his father. Before he could speak, his father began shouting, asking if Jiagang had spent all his allowance again. Mr. Han reminded him that he was sent to Martial University to become a strong martial artist, not to waste time partying. Jiagang quickly calmed his father, explaining that he wasn't asking for money. Instead, he had serious business. He mentioned that a classmate had 7 drops of rare beast's blood for sale, and it was of even better quality than the blood his father had previously purchased. Jiagang said he couldn't estimate the price and suggested his father come see it for himself. Mr. Han, shocked, asked if Jiagang was sure. Jiagang swore it was true and urged his father to come immediately. Mr. Han agreed and said he would bring Master Cao along. An hour later, Master Cao examined the blood. Excitedly, he declared it top-notch. He added that the energy contained within was the most refined he had ever seen in ordinary rare beast's blood. With 7 drops, he said, he could craft a top-tier body-refining pill. Mr. Han questioned if Master Cao's estimate was too high, but Master Cao assured him it was accurate. He explained that even top-tier instruments would likely confirm the value as even higher. Jiagang was ecstatic, praising Subai for having such amazing beast's blood. Master Cao then asked Subai how much he wanted for it. Subai replied that the blood couldn't be sold for money. It could only be exchanged for an equivalent value of blood chi powder. Mr. Han nodded in understanding and, as a gesture of goodwill, offered Subai 14 bottles of blood chi powder in exchange for all 7 drops. Subai agreed and thanked Mr. Han for the fair deal. However, Mr. Han wasn't finished. He asked Subai if he would be interested in joining the Han family, promising to provide him with all the resources he needed for cultivation. Subai politely declined, explaining that he wasn't currently interested in joining any family. Mr. Han urged him to reconsider, but their conversation was interrupted by a sudden voice, saying Subai didn't want to join the Han family. Everyone turned to see Yanran standing nearby. She glared at Mr. Han and repeated that Subai's decision was final. Mr. Han, startled, asked who she was. Jiagang, recognizing her, exclaimed, "Isn't she the goddess?" Yanran replied calmly that she had been running errands and happened to encounter them. Mr. Han, still confused, asked Master Cao who she was. Master Cao leaned in and whispered something to him, which left Mr. Han visibly shocked. Mr. Han immediately grabbed Subai and Jiagang, laughing nervously while addressing Yanran. He explained that the situation was just a misunderstanding, emphasizing that Subai and Jiagang were classmates and good brothers. Yanran, unfazed, walked closer to Subai and softly asked if he was heading back to school. When he nodded, she suggested they return together. Subai agreed, saying he had just finished his business. Waving goodbye to Mr. Han, he told Jiagang he'd see him back at the dorm. Yanran then grabbed Subai's arm and started pulling him away. Jiagang called out, asking Yanran to wait for him since he was also heading back to school. However, Mr. Han stopped him. Sternly, he told Jiagang to get along well with Subai, as the future of the Han family might depend on him. He added that Jiagang should keep a very safe and polite distance from Lin Yanran. Jiagang, now even more confused, asked his father why Subai and Yanran were so important and how he hadn't noticed before. 2 days later, at Marshall University campus training ground, Zheng Kai addressed the gathered freshmen. He announced that in the coming days, they would all participate in freshman special training. The training location for this session was none other than the battlefield of myriad races. One student nervously asked if they were really being sent to the battlefield of myriad races for training and whether it was too dangerous. Kai acknowledged the risks but reassured them that the designated training area had been cleared by the university's forces and that their safety would be ensured. He added that while failing the special training wasn't a big deal, they should strive to survive. Kai then explained that every 50 students would form a class, each led by a bronze-level instructor who would assign and oversee their tasks. He wished them all a triumphant return. Excitedly, Yanran ran over to Subai, happily announcing that they were in the same class. Subai's dormmates were thrilled to see her, but their joy was interrupted when a woman arrived, questioning whether the arrangements were intentional. The woman shouted for Class 8 to gather around and introduced herself as Liao Yuxin, their special training instructor. She explained that she would relay all tasks during the training. As the students gathered, many couldn't help but admire her beauty. Yuxin's next words silenced the crowd. Their first task was to write a will. Shocked, fear gripped the students. Some felt a deep sense of dread, wondering if their lives were truly at risk. Others thought about their families and all they still wanted to accomplish. Yuxin gave them 1 day to complete their wills and instructed them to gather at the teleportation plaza by 8 a.m. the following day for departure. Yanran turned to Subai, asking if he had any plans. He replied that he didn't have much to prepare and would head back to the dorm. She agreed, saying she'd see him tomorrow. Later, at men's dormitory, Jiagang proposed having a fun night with the guys since they would be heading to the battlefield the next day. He invited Subai to join them, but Subai declined, explaining he had something to do. Wishing them a great time, he assured them he'd call if he needed anything. As Jiagang and the others left, Jiagang noticed Xiaoba beside Subai. Knocking on its shell, he remarked on how hard it was and called it interesting. Subai introduced Xiaoba as his pet, mentioning its voracious appetite. Jiagang laughed, calling it cool, and then left with the others, telling Subai they'd see him later. Once they were gone, Subai turned to Xiaoba. Smiling, he told the turtle that since it was always eating, tonight it could eat to its heart's content. However, he warned Xiaoba that once they reached the battlefield of myriad races, it would need to show what it was capable of. Xiaoba eagerly agreed, showing Subai its empty bowl. Subai gave it another dose of blood chi powder, which Xiaoba immediately devoured. Subai chuckled, reminding the turtle to take its time eating since no one would take the food from it. Just then, the system popped up, congratulating Subai on upgrading Xiaoba to an ordinary high-tier beast. It also showed that Subai's own level had increased, granting him a new talent, Heavy Strike. Xiaoba froze in shock as it felt its body undergoing an upgrade. The system displayed Xiaoba's new stats. It had also gained a third talent, Heavy Strike. This ability, when triggered, consumed stamina to enhance attack power by 100% to 200%, with the strength of the attack increasing based on the stamina used. As Xiaoba processed its transformation, Subai praised the turtle, joking that it had better show off its new strength in the coming days. The system displayed Subai's increased stats and his new talent, Heavy Strike, confirming that the blood chi powder had done its job. Xiaoba had leveled up again, and their attribute gains were seriously impressive. Subai praised Xiaoba for its excellent progress and told it that once they were on the battlefield of myriad races, they would give it their all. He asked if Xiaoba was ready, to which it confidently replied, yes. The next day, at the teleportation plaza, an officer reported to the chief instructor that all students were ready and prepared for the mission. The chief instructed the officer to activate teleportation array number 1 and prepare for teleportation. The officer acknowledged the order, and the students began entering the massive array. Jiagang marveled at the enormous teleportation array, remarking that it was something one could only see at Martial University. Yanran, standing next to Subai, worriedly told him to be careful once they reached the battlefield of myriad races. Subai reassured her not to worry, promising that they would successfully complete the mission. She smiled and wished him good luck. When they reached the front of the line, Instructor Yu Sin instructed everyone to relax completely to ensure a smooth teleportation. Following her guidance, the students successfully teleported to the battlefield of myriad races. The group appeared inside a military base. Jiagang, wide-eyed, asked if this was the military base inside the battlefield of myriad races. Jiajun confirmed it excitedly, while Chaoan shouted in awe about how cool it was. Their enthusiasm was quickly interrupted by Yuxin, who shouted at them to quiet down and then introduced them to Deputy Commander Lei Tao, explaining that they were all new recruits who hadn't seen much yet. Lei Tao introduced himself as the Deputy Commander of Military Base F-269. He told the students they could call him either Deputy Commander or simply Sir. He emphasized that here, he didn't care if they were students or instructors. On his turf, they followed his orders. He asked if they understood, and the group replied in unison, "Yes, sir." Lei Tao then informed them that they were in luck because his team had just finished a battle. Jiagang whispered to Subai, asking what was so special about Lei Tao when he was just a deputy commander. Subai replied that judging by Lei Tao's scarred face, he seemed like an experienced officer. Lei Tao announced their first task, cleaning up the battlefield. While doing so, they would also clear out any remaining shadow cats in the area. He explained that this was a perfect mission for recruits stepping onto the battlefield for the first time. He added that eliminating shadow cats would earn them merit points, which could be exchanged at the logistics department for blood chi powder and various grades of body refinement elixirs to improve their strength. Jiagang shouted excitedly, "Fortune favors the brave." Jiajun agreed, saying it was no wonder so many people risked their lives to come to the battlefield of myriad races. Lei Tao smirked at their enthusiasm, commenting that they seemed eager for action. He ordered the group to move out immediately, which they all excitedly acknowledged. Subai, however, remained calm, strategizing how to accumulate merit points to exchange for valuable resources. He also thought to himself that Xiaoba would finally face some real challenges. On the way to the battlefield. As they marched, the recruits passed wounded soldiers returning from the front lines. Some were missing arms or legs and were screaming in pain. Jiajun asked if the injuries were from fighting shadow cats. Jiagang, horrified, questioned how shadow cats, supposedly the lowest level monsters, could be so dangerous. A female student, clearly shaken, fearfully wondered aloud if even the lowest level shadow cats were this deadly, and whether she would make it back alive. Yusin, irritated, shouted at them to stop their noise. She reminded them that they had applied to Martial University knowing full well the dangers, and they needed to be prepared to face death. Yanran, worried, urged Subai to stay close to her on the battlefield, as she didn't want anything to happen to him. Subai agreed and told her to be careful too. He realized that constant vigilance would be crucial on the battlefield of myriad races. Arrival at the camp gate. A soldier reported to Deputy Commander Lei Tao that their team was currently guarding the northern gate of the camp and had killed 35 beasts that had attacked earlier. Lei Tao praised his men and ordered them to open the gate to give the recruits a real glimpse of the battlefield of myriad races. The gate creaked open, revealing the vast, chaotic expanse beyond. Yuxin addressed the recruits, saying that having Lei Tao personally lead their team was a rare opportunity, and they should make sure to perform well. The students replied that they understood. Lei Tao, standing at the gate, turned back to the group and asked if they had left their wills at the main office. He warned them that from this moment on, they would be keeping company with death every second of their lives. They were all shocked when they came out of the military base and saw the military continuously shooting at the monsters in front of them. A brutal scene unfolded before their eyes. The leader of the team on duty saw them and asked Liatao why he had come out personally. But Liatao told the man that there was no time for talking and ordered him to gather a squad to accompany him in protecting the trainees, which the man immediately followed. Yu Xin then informed them that they were heading to Military Zone F-269 next and oriented them about the area. She explained that it was a jungle where the beasts had already been eliminated and that their mission was to extract the beast cores from the bodies of the shadow cats on the battlefield. Liatao then asked if they were ready, to which they all replied, yes. The team leader called his military team to move out, and a few soldiers followed to provide protection. The man assured Yu Xin not to worry because cleaning up the battlefield wasn't dangerous, adding that sending new military recruits into real combat was almost like delivering food to the enemy, which they wouldn't want. He then asked Liatao why he was personally leading the protection team, but Liatao simply shouted at him, telling him that he talked too much and shouldn't ask questions he had no business asking. The man quickly agreed. Yu Xin then thanked Liatao for the trouble, but Liatao replied that it was no trouble at all because the new recruits from the military university were the future soldiers of the battlefield, and protecting them was his duty. Meanwhile, in the imperial capital, at the Dragon Nation's highest military command center, a man rushed in panic to the chief of staff to report an emergency. He informed the chief that the latest intelligence from the battlefield of all races indicated that a large number of fierce beasts had invaded their defense line. Furthermore, 12 golden-level strong members of the Shadowcat clan had joined the attack, targeting 12 southwest border military bases, including D-128 and D-140. The chief immediately ordered the man to determine the movements of the fierce beasts and instruct all military bases to increase their defenses. He added that right now, first-year students from various martial universities were undergoing training on the battlefield of all races, and since they were the future of their nation, they must not suffer any losses. Meanwhile, in Military Zone F-269, Liatao told the recruits to clear the battlefield and move quickly because every extra minute spent there increased their danger. The students then began collecting the cores of the dead beasts. Yanran mentioned that the fur, flesh, and claws of the shadow cats could all be used as materials for making weapons and medicines. He responded that it was no wonder so many people came to the dangerous battlefield of all races, as rare materials were everywhere. He also thought to himself that Xiao Ba would feast tonight. Looking at his inventory, he decided that he should collect more beast cores to exchange for blood chi powder when they returned, so Xiao Ba could level up again. However, at that moment, the system issued a warning of extreme danger. It detected 164 Shadow Cat aliens rapidly approaching with clear hostility. The threat was located 3 kilometers southwest in the forest and was categorized as a 5-star high threat level and a 4-star deadly threat level. He immediately stood up, knowing that the last warning had been for a beginner warrior, but this time, it was a 5-star deadly threat. Yanran, confused by his sudden action, asked what was wrong. Without hesitation, he rushed to Yu Xin, informing her that there was a situation. He sensed a large group of fierce beasts rapidly closing in on them from the southwest. Yu Xin looked in that direction but saw nothing. The area was silent. She then jumped down from a tree and shouted at him, reminding him that this was the battlefield of all races, not a place for him to mess around. She warned him to consider the consequences of causing panic among his classmates. However, he insisted that he wasn't joking and explained that a large group of fierce beasts was indeed approaching. Liatao then appeared behind him, asking if his name was Su Bai. He stated that Su Bai had claimed to sense a beast attack, but he could guarantee there were no beasts within 2 kilometers. Su Bai, determined, explained again that he was not joking. There were at least 100 shadow cats, 3 kilometers away, heading straight for them. Liatao asked if Su Bai was claiming that his sensing abilities were stronger than his. Yu Xin told Liatao that Su Bai might be overly nervous and imagining things since it was his first time on the battlefield, so he shouldn't take it personally. Yanran shouted that no one should jump to conclusions until they had clarity, and that she believed in what Su Bai said. Su Bai insisted that the beasts were getting closer, and that they should believe him because he was a beast tamer with a special crisis sense. This revelation shocked Yu Xin, who asked if he was an ability user and why the school hadn't registered it. Su Bai explained that he had been recommended to Martial University, so the school hadn't documented his abilities. The other students were astonished that he was an ability user and wondered why they had never seen his beasts before. Suddenly, they heard a swarm of growling approaching, and the students instinctively rushed back. When they saw that it was indeed shadow cats, they realized that Su Bai had been telling the truth. Liatao shouted for the students to quickly form up around him and set up a defensive formation. He then ordered the communications officer to contact the base immediately and request reinforcements. However, the officer reported that they had just received word from the base that it had also detected numerous signs of fierce beasts around its perimeter, making it impossible to send support. Yu Xin, worried, asked Liatao if there were really hundreds of fierce beasts approaching. She pointed out that without reinforcements, it would be dangerous because the students had limited combat abilities. Liatao admitted that Su Bai's sensing had been accurate, as he could now sense a large group of beasts closing in fast. He then called the vice squad leader and ordered 4 soldiers to protect 2 specific students with all their might. The man agreed, but one of the students protested, shouting that he could fight and didn't need protection. A bronze-level shadow cat appeared in front of them. The military immediately launched a counterattack as the shadow cats lunged at them. The students, watching in horror as the shadow cats effortlessly killed some of the soldiers, cried out in fear, realizing that these weren't just ordinary cats but more like tigers. Liatao shouted at his team to hold the defensive line, and Yushin told the students that as long as they could withstand the first wave of the shadow cats' charge, they could defeat them. She then reminded them of their oath. As the shadow cats got closer, the students shouted in unison that with their chests, they would build an unbreakable great wall for the Dragon Nation. Bright arrows suddenly appeared and struck the shadow cats in front of them just in time. They turned to see Zhang Mani and Luo Yongqiang, both at bronze level 1. Mani instructed Yongqiang to hold the cats off while she pierced through them, but Yongqiang laughed and dismissed the threat, claiming that the cats were nothing to fear and that he would crush them. Yushin recognized the skilled archer Mani and the naturally strong Yongqiang, feeling proud of this year's group of students. Their abilities were truly formidable. The other students also recognized Mani's exceptional skill and Yongqiang's remarkable strength, growing excited at the realization that these two were several levels above them. A loud growl suddenly echoed through the battlefield, forcing everyone to stop and cover their ears in pain. A larger beast emerged from the forest, and the students were shocked to see that it was the Shadow Cat King, a silver intermediate level beast with a 45 physique, 88 ability, and 43 mental strength. Liatao, who had been holding his own against the regular shadow cats, looked on in horror. He questioned how a silver-level Cat King had shown up there and immediately ordered his men to contact the base again and request reinforcements. Without hesitation, Yongqiang rushed forward, launching his sword at the Shadow Cat King and taunting it as he struck. Mani aimed her bow at the beast and called out to Yongqiang, assuring him that she would provide support and instructing him to distract its vision. Yushin, panicking, shouted for them to retreat immediately, warning that the silver-level beast was not to be taken lightly. Before they could react, the Shadow Cat King counterattacked effortlessly, striking them down with a single swipe of its claws. Both Mani and Yongqiang were thrown to the ground. Yushin's panic grew, and she frantically urged them to hurry back. Liatao, realizing there was no time, ordered his men to open fire on the Shadow Cat King. However, the beast remained unfazed by the bullets and instead pounced toward the two fallen students at the front. Fortunately, something struck the Shadow Cat King in the head just in time, pushing it away. They then saw that it was Xiaoba, leaving them wondering what it was. Yushin questioned if it was a turtle, but Jiagang quickly realized that it was Subai's Xiaoba. Subai walked forward, remarking that, as expected, that entrance was still a bit awkward. He then formally introduced himself to everyone as a beast tamer and explained that Xiaoba was his beast. He told them to focus on handling the smaller ones while he dealt with the Cat King. Everyone was amazed, unable to believe that a turtle had knocked away the Cat King. Yanran stared at him in amazement, wondering if that was really his tamed beast. He then ordered Xiaoba to show the Wild Cat King what it could do. Xiaoba immediately charged toward the Cat King, astonishing everyone as they questioned how Subai's turtle could run so fast and if it was even still a turtle. Liatao, who was busy shooting shadow cats while watching Xiaoba fight the Cat King, remarked to Yushin that Subai unexpectedly possessed such power. Yushin responded that she hadn't expected it either, and noted that Subai's beast taming was indeed a little different. She then turned to the students and told them that since Subai had already distracted the Cat King, they should take the opportunity to attack and clear out the remaining nether cats. The students quickly teamed up, using their magic power or physical strength to eliminate the smaller shadow cats around them. Meanwhile, the Cat King pinned Xiaoba to the ground and raised its sharp claws, slashing down at him. However, it was stunned when its claws shattered upon impact. Xiaoba simply smiled at the sight. Liatao couldn't believe that a normal-grade creature could withstand the Silver Cat King's crushing claws, but he knew now was not the time to be shocked. He leaped forward, shouting for his team to cover him. With the Cat King occupied, he aimed his sword at its abdomen, its weak spot, and attempted to pierce it from behind while declaring that it was time for it to die. However, the Cat King swiped its tail, knocking Liatao away. Fortunately, Liatao managed to jump back in time, realizing that he had missed his mark. Without hesitation, he lunged at the beast once more, shouting that either it died or he lived. Subai commanded Xiaoba to use its ultimate move. A strong green light radiated from Xiaoba's body, surprising everyone and leaving them wondering what its ultimate move was and why it was spinning in place. As Xiaoba spun at high speed, Subai suddenly stepped back, recalling that, according to the boss guide, the Cat King's weak spot was its abdomen. With all his strength, he kicked Xiaoba, launching it at full speed toward the Cat King. Xiaoba struck its abdomen with immense force, snapping its backbone in the process. The beast crashed to the ground while Xiaoba skillfully landed safely. Liatao, amazed that Xiaoba had successfully struck the weak spot, told the others to check whether the Cat King had survived. The Cat King managed to sit up, howling loudly into the sky before collapsing and dying. The students cheered, relieved that the Cat King had been defeated. Li Tao asked if they had won. Yanran, overjoyed, jumped forward and hugged Su Bai, shouting that he was amazing for having defeated a silver-level cat king. The other students crowded around, praising him and eagerly asking where he had gotten his turtle. Meanwhile, Xiaoba was busy searching through the cat king's corpse. Su Bai noticed and panicked, demanding to know what it was sneaking off to eat this time, shouting for it to get back. Before he could intervene, it started to rain, and the clouds darkened. Xiaoba, ignoring Su Bai's calls, continued eating the core it had found inside the cat king. Liatao's expression turned serious as he realized the danger. He now understood that the cat king's final howl had been a summoning call. He wondered if an even more dangerous beast was approaching. Meanwhile, in the base operations center, a man reported that, according to frontline energy wave analysis, base F-269 was detecting a large number of unknown-level beasts, posing extreme danger. This shocked the chief, who immediately asked the man if he was saying that Hulin's daughter was among the group of trainee students. Mr. Wen Yuan confirmed this and urged the chief to provide immediate support. The chief agreed and stated that he would dispatch a scout company to escort them to the battlefield, but Yuan refused, saying there was no need because he couldn't wait. He would head there himself. Yuan then emphasized that he hoped reinforcements would reach the battlefield within 20 minutes. The chief assured him that the order was being given immediately. As the situation escalated, the chief rushed to call someone, knowing that if Hulin went mad, the entire Jiangzhou wouldn't be able to handle it. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, a pair of large red eyes appeared in the sky, and a deep voice called them foolish humans and a lowly species. Yuxin, panicked, questioned how it was possible and couldn't believe that it could actually speak human language. Li Tao was equally shocked, knowing that for a beast to understand human language, it had to be at least golden level, which shouldn't have appeared there. Li Tao quickly ordered everyone to form a defensive formation, placing the injured at the center. Suddenly, a shadow beast descended behind the corpse of the Shadow Cat King, its menacing gaze fixed on them. It demanded to know how they dared to slaughter its kind, cursing loudly and start devouring the Cat King's corpse. Li Tao, in disbelief, kept repeating that it was impossible and questioned how such a creature could appear in that area. At that moment, the system issued a warning. Extreme danger detected. A golden-level beast has appeared. Immediate evacuation is advised. Lethal threat level, 5 stars. The students finally realized the terrifying truth. It was a mutated Shadow Cat King, golden level, with 272 constitution, 345 agility, and 275 mentality. After sustaining severe injuries, it had entered a bloodthirsty berserk state, doubling its agility and attack power by 100% while reducing its defense by 50%. The system classified its combat analysis as extremely dangerous. Yongqiang was in disbelief, realizing that even their teachers had probably never faced something like this before. Mani, gripped by fear, screamed that she wanted to go home and didn't want to die. Li Tao, without hesitation, leaped forward, shouting for everyone to escort the wounded and retreat while he covered them. Standing his ground, he declared that he would fight the beast to the death. But before he could react, the mutated Shadow Cat King effortlessly slashed him away with a single swing of its claws. Li Tao crashed into the ground, severely injured. Seeing this, Su Bai immediately ordered Xiaoba to protect Li Tao. Xiaoba followed the command, managing to block the mutated cat's devastating slash just in time with its shell. The mutated cat was shocked by how exceptionally tough Xiaoba's shell was, but then cracks began to spread across it. Xiaoba coughed up blood, and Li Tao, struggling to move, worriedly asked if it was okay. Su Bai coughed up blood as well, shocking Yanran, who was surprised to see that he was injured. Yuxin rushed to help Li Tao while questioning how Su Bai could be hurt. Li Tao speculated that it could be due to the beast tamer's talent, origin confluence, but Yuxin dismissed it as impossible and decided to take a closer look. At that moment, the system appeared with a warning. His beast is in critical condition. As his beast tamer talent is activated, he and Xiaoba share energy and jointly bear damage. Yuxin noticed that Su Bai had no external wounds, making her wonder if he had actually comprehended the legendary beast taming skill, Origin Confluence. Yanran, worried, asked if he was okay, and he assured her that he was fine. Yuxin then shouted to everyone that Su Bai was currently taking attacks from the gold-level Nethercat for his tamed beast, so they needed to support him. Without hesitation, everyone agreed and rallied, shouting that they couldn't let Su Bai fight alone. The mutated cat sneered, calling them a bunch of ants, but they still charged forward to attack. Just then, Yuxin noticed a shadow attack speeding past her, heading straight for Yanran, who was protecting Su Bai. A loud explosion erupted around them, but when the smoke cleared, Yanran and Su Bai were unharmed. Yanran looked forward in shock, but Su Bai simply stated that the crystallization of the Silver Cat King had finally been fully absorbed. At that moment, the system notified him that Xiaoba's level had increased to Bronze tier, activating its deity bloodline and increasing all its attributes and talents by 10%. Suddenly, Xiaoba began releasing a strong, bright golden light, its form radiating with newfound power. Yushin, still in shock, asked if Subai's beast had evolved. Li Tao speculated that it could be an epic-level tamed beast. Yanran helped Subai stand up, noticing that his injuries were healed, and he reassured her that he was fine now. Without hesitation, he commanded Xiaoba to destroy the mutated cat. Xiaoba charged forward and effortlessly sent the mutated cat flying, leaving everyone stunned. Li Tao, despite knowing that Xiaoba was only at bronze tier, sensed the overwhelming pressure it emitted and concluded that its bloodline level must be exceptionally high. The others simply couldn't believe that Xiaoba had actually knocked the mutated cat king away. The mutated cat barely managed to stop itself, digging its claws into the ground in rage. It then went berserk, screaming that it wanted them all dead. Li Tao quickly warned everyone to be careful, instructing them to retreat, scatter, and run. As its rage intensified, the mutated cat released a swarm of shadow cats from its body, vowing that not a single one of them would escape. The shadow cats bypassed Xiaoba and rushed at the students from behind. Reacting immediately, Subai ordered Xiaoba to stop them. Xiaoba let out a powerful growl, releasing a golden light that froze the shadow cats in place. The light engulfed them, pulling them toward Xiaoba as it consumed them all. With the shadows absorbed, Subai ordered Xiaoba not to hold back and to unleash its full power. Xiaoba obeyed, releasing an explosive energy blast directly at the mutated cat. The sheer force shattered the ground and obliterated the forest in the process. Everyone stood frozen in disbelief, witnessing the overwhelming wave of energy that dissolved the mutated cat into dust. A moment later, Yuan landed on a nearby tree and was surprised to see that the battle was already over. As he took in the brutal battlefield, he wondered what they had gone through. Walking closer to Yanran, he expressed his relief that she was safe. Yanran responded that she was fine, but Yushin simply asked what brought Yuan there. Liatao introduced himself to Yuan and reported that during the battle, one of his squads had cooperated with the university's mentors and students, encountering a large group of nethercats. He added that they had killed over 800 nethercats, including several at the bronze level, one at the silver level, and one at the gold level, and were currently tallying casualties and providing initial treatment to the seriously injured. Yuan, shocked, asked if a gold-level creature had truly appeared and whether they had actually managed to kill it, finding the idea unbelievable. Liatao explained that it was Subai and his tamed beast who had done it. Yuan then turned to Subai, asking if he was the one who had killed the Cat King. Subai humbly replied that it had been a joint effort between him, the deputy commander, and the mentors, and that it wasn't solely his achievement. Satisfied with the response, Yuan praised him for doing a remarkable job. Yuan then asked if Subai would be interested in furthering his studies at Jiangzhou Fortress after graduating from the university. He assured him that although beast tamers had declined, he would personally guide him. Subai thanked Yuan for his kindness, but admitted that he hadn't made a decision yet. Liatao then reported to Yuan that the battlefield had been cleared and awaited further instructions. Yuan ordered them to return to the base, which Liatao acknowledged. Liatao then instructed the students to count all candidates and enter the portal in an orderly fashion. Before they left, he encouraged them to continue training hard, telling them that they were the strongest group he had ever encountered. As Liatao watched the students leave, he told Yuxin that those kids were truly special, especially Subai, who he believed had great potential. Yuxin agreed, admitting that even she couldn't believe how strong Subai had become as a freshman. She remarked that his future strength was simply unimaginable. Li Tao then bid her farewell, stating that this time, he owed Subai his life. Yuxin nodded in agreement, saying that they would meet again. A moment later, Subai was relieved to finally be back. They were welcomed by teachers and students, who hailed them as heroes. One of the teachers approached Yongqiang, calling him a hero, but Yongqiang dismissed the praise, stating that the real hero was Subai and that they were nothing in comparison, merely cannon fodder. A man who had lost his hand agreed, saying that while they weren't much more than cannon fodder, he was just grateful to have made it back alive. Another man, who had lost one of his feet, added that if he hadn't lost so many classmates, he might have thought today's battle was just a dream. Kai approached Subai and welcomed him back, telling him that he already knew about everything that had happened on the battlefield. He praised Subai and the others as heroes of the university, adding that Subai's assessment results this time would be the highest in history. But Subai simply replied that all he wanted at the moment was to go back to the dorm, take a shower, and get a good night's sleep, which made the others laugh in agreement. Later that night in the dorm, Jiagang lay in bed and sighed, asking if they didn't think the beds felt especially soft tonight. He remarked that he felt like he had been sealed into the bed, completely exhausted. Chaoan, reflecting on their achievement, asked if they had actually accomplished something significant, and whether their military achievements would be recorded. Jiagang, however, was more interested in knowing how many resources their military achievements could be exchanged for. He then jokingly told them that if they were talking about real military achievements, their brother Subai took down a gold-level beast, and he bet Subai could exchange it for an entire basket of training resources. Excited, Jiagang turned to Subai and asked what kind of turtle he had, mentioning that he might want one for himself, not for any other reason. but simply because looking at a turtle made him feel at ease. Subai didn't respond, as Xiaoba was already fast asleep, dreaming peacefully of kissing a female turtle. The next day, someone knocked loudly on their room door. Jiagong woke up, irritated, and shouted for them to stop knocking. Still half asleep, he asked who it was and why they were knocking so early. However, when he opened the door, he was stunned to see several pretty ladies standing outside holding gifts. The ladies introduced themselves as members of the Jiangwu Student Council and explained that since they were heroes who had just returned from the battlefield, they had brought them breakfast. They added that the senior sisters themselves had prepared it, so they shouldn't complain. Then, without hesitation, they asked which one of them was Subai. Jiagong, still surprised, let them in and assured them that they were too kind and that they definitely wouldn't disappoint them with their generosity. The ladies entered the room, looking around as they eagerly asked where Subai was and if they could take a photo with him. Chawan, pointing at Subai's empty bed, informed them that Subai had gone out for a run. He then curiously asked if they knew Subai, but the ladies simply shot back at him, asking why he hadn't mentioned earlier that Subai wasn't there. One of them scoffed, saying that everyone in the entire school knew who Subai was now. Jiajun, still half asleep, asked if Subai had actually become famous, to which one of the ladies excitedly confirmed and urged them to quickly turn on the television. Meanwhile, another lady, clearly disappointed, took the breakfast back, stating that since Subai wasn't there, they would take it away. Meanwhile, at the training ground, Subai was in the middle of his usual training when he overheard a report from the country's military channel playing on a nearby television. The reporter delivered shocking news. Just yesterday, several provinces had suffered large-scale attacks from the 10,000 race alliance of ferocious beasts, targeting human military bases. Among the attacking beasts, golden-level combat power had been confirmed. Across the nation, many students from different provinces had been slaughtered by the ferocious beasts. However, in this brutal war, one university stood out: Zhangzhou Martial University. The report praised the instructors and students for their valiant resistance, highlighting how they managed to slay one golden-level ferocious beast, one silver-level beast, several bronze-level beasts, and countless ordinary ones. Then came the biggest shock. Among the heroes of the battle, first-year student Subai had single-handedly held back a golden-level ferocious beast while being surrounded by enemy forces. Under the combined siege of the instructors and a bronze-level military expert, he achieved the remarkable feat of a cross-tier kill. The report concluded by stating that every other defensive line had been defeated, but Zhangzhou Martial University alone had emerged victorious. As a result, the nation's military had collectively awarded second-class merit to all participating students and instructors from Zhangzhou Martial University, granting them the Great Wall Silver Medal. Subai stood frozen in shock. It had all happened so suddenly. The report continued, revealing that due to his outstanding military achievements, Subai had been awarded first-class merit and received the prestigious Great Wall Golden Medal. The crowd watching the broadcast exploded in cheers, amazed that a mere freshman had been awarded the Great Wall Golden Medal, something they could never hope to earn in their lifetime. Women in the crowd swooned, declaring that they wanted to date him, while the clueless students kept asking who Subai was, completely unaware that he was standing right in front of them. Realizing that things were getting out of hand, Subai quickly decided to slip away unnoticed. He hid from the crowd and quietly answered his ringing phone. On the other end, Xiaomei excitedly shouted that he was on television, to which he calmly replied that he had already seen it. She then informed him that their mother and father wanted him to come home for a bit so they could celebrate his achievement. However, Subai simply brushed it off, telling her that there was no need. Father Lin told Subai that he had received a great honor and that all their neighbors were talking about him. Mother Lin then mentioned that his third uncle's little sister had just called, saying she wanted to introduce him to a girlfriend. Xiaomei chimed in, telling him that he really should come back for a visit. Otherwise, their door might get kicked down. Subai agreed and told them that since the test had just ended, he had a 2-day break, so he would pack up and head home for a visit. Xiaomei excitedly agreed and teasingly added that now that he was famous, their father would probably wake up laughing in his dreams. However, Subai simply calmly replied that he was hanging up now. Hours later, Subai arrived back in his hometown, only to be greeted by an excited crowd of neighbors. They loudly proclaimed that the hero of their town had returned and called for everyone to come out and welcome him. Subai, shocked and confused, asked if everyone had really been waiting for him. His neighbors surrounded him happily, calling him a great hero and eagerly asking if he remembered them. Father Lin, Mother Lin, and Xiaomei walked up to him, warmly welcoming him back. A woman among the crowd invited him to have dinner at her house, saying she had made dumplings filled with seafood. He thanked her but politely declined, explaining that he was allergic to seafood. Another man eagerly told him to come to his house instead, boasting that he had stewed turtle in a pot and that they should have a drink together. Father Lin thanked everyone for their kindness but explained that he had already prepared food at home. He assured them that once Subai had rested, they would visit everyone. Subai nodded in agreement, promising to visit all his uncles and aunts. One woman quickly added that her granddaughter was also studying in the city and that Subai should meet her. However, an old man beside her immediately dismissed the idea, claiming that her granddaughter wasn't worthy of Subai since she had just graduated that year. Meanwhile, Subai and Xiaomei managed to escape the crowd of neighbors and finally entered their apartment. Subai sighed in relief, telling Xiaomei that if he had known it would be like this, he would have sneaked back after dark. Xiaomei laughed, telling him that it wouldn't have worked. The woman had already set up surveillance at their door, just waiting for him to come back so she could introduce her granddaughter to him. Father Lin proudly announced that he was cooking personally, while Mother Lin told Subai to take a break while she and his father handled the cooking. She also told Xiaomei to help out. Subai threw his bag onto the sofa and sat down in relief, finally feeling like he could take a break. However, just then, a system panel appeared in front of him, surprising him. He stared at the screen in confusion. It displayed a notification. A contractable creature had been detected. The creature was a little kitten, and the system asked if he wanted to tame it. Xiaomei noticed his reaction and asked him what was wrong, but he instead asked her if they had gotten a cat. She approached the small kitten eating in the corner and asked if he was talking about Bai. Subai frowned and asked if they couldn't get a more high-end pet, but Xiaomei defended Bai, insisting that he was cute. She explained that a few days ago she had found Bai on the road and decided to bring him home and raise him. Seeing how much his little sister liked the kitten, Subai was about to give up on the idea, but then the system displayed detailed stats. The kitten was classified as ordinary beginner, but it possessed a trace of the white tiger sacred beast's bloodline. According to the system, it could grow infinitely and was ultimately capable of slaying gods. Its current stats were low, but it had Sharp Claw's talent, which doubled its attack speed and attack power by 100%. Additionally, its evolution method was simply eating. Subai couldn't believe what he was seeing and immediately decided to tame it first and then talk later. With a sweet smile, he told Xiaomei that he wanted to discuss something with her and asked if he could keep Bai since he, her brother, was a beastmaster. Xiaomei firmly refused, clutching Bai tightly and shouting that he couldn't take her little Bai away. Subai sighed and tried to negotiate, asking her if he was right that she wanted a laptop. However, Xiaomei immediately ran away, shouting that it wasn't happening and that she wouldn't give Bai to him. Not giving up, Subai chased after her, asking if she had been eyeing a dress recently. But Xiaomei kept running, yelling that there were no negotiations. Meanwhile, Mother Lin watched them, completely confused about what was happening. 2 days later, Subai returned to Marshall University. He sighed in relief, glad to be back at school. However, the ladies behind him whispered to each other, wondering if he really was Subai and why there was a cat in his bag. Some even speculated that he might be a cat lover. Xiaoba turned to Bai and confidently told him that this was their big boss's school, assuring him that from now on, he would cover for him. Bai, unimpressed, simply replied that Xiaoba was crowding him. As Subai continued walking, he overheard students talking about him, discussing how he had received the golden medal. Many were surprised by his average appearance, wondering why so many girls had been coming to the dorms to find him. Realizing that he was attracting too much attention, Subai concluded that he would need to wear a mask whenever he went out. Just then, an announcement repeatedly echoed through the campus, calling him to the principal's office. Subai paused, wondering what the principal could possibly want from him. Minutes later, in the principal's office, the principal tells him that he is a good lad, a true man of Huaxia, and that given his exceptional performance at the F-269 military base, the school is prepared to reward him. The principal then asks him what he wants. He responds that it was all thanks to the school and the principal, while remembering that he had heard their principal is notoriously stingy, which means getting some food money from Xiaoba won't be easy. He then tells the principal that he thinks they shouldn't let the school spend too much, so he should just give him 100 golden tier beast cores. This shocks the principal, who shouts at him that even if he smashes his old bones into pieces, he won't have that many, and sarcastically asks if he would like the principal's position instead. Subai tells the principal that he would accept 100 silver tier beast cores instead, but the principal shouts at him not to even think about the silver tier, and explains that with his current military merits, he can't even get a fraction of it. He then tells the principal that he can do without that golden medal or whatever it is called, so he should just exchange it for 50 silver tier beast cores instead. He reminds the principal that he has sacrificed for the school, yet the principal responds that humans are humans, and because the strong protect the weak, it is both a duty and a mission. This means saving those students is the consciousness and mission he should have as a strong person, and he asks Subai if he understands, leaving him speechless. Subai then tells the principal to stop with the nonsense and offer 50 silver tier beast cores, but the principal just says that the military and the school won't bury a genius like him. The principal then tells him that he will give him 10 bronze tier beast cores, which shocks Subai. He asks the principal loudly if it is really just 10 bronze tier beast cores, but he doesn't want to accept it and tells the principal that he will take 20 bronze cores instead. However, the principal shouts that all he can give is 15 bronze cores and tells him to take it or leave it. Subai immediately accepts, making the principal unable to believe that he was actually trying to bargain with him, while Subai thinks that the principal is really as stingy as he expected. The principal then turns around, telling him that besides rewarding him, there is one more small matter he needs to inform him about. Subai asks the principal what that small matter is, and the principal replies that the school has chosen him as a freshman representative to participate in that year's 100 Schools League. This confuses Subai, and he asks the principal what he means by the 100 Schools League. He then asks if the reward was just an excuse and if the principal was actually waiting for him there. He then shouts to the principal that it is not fair, but the principal just asks him what he means, and reminds him that as a member of Jiangzhou Martial University, it is his responsibility as a student to bring glory to the school. The principal then asks him if he doesn't want resources because the rewards from the league are quite generous. Subai asks the principal if he is right that the school league is packed with skilled players and that getting a rank won't be easy. He then tells the principal that it is definitely not simple, yet the principal just asks him back how he can be so timid and orders him to go back and get ready. The principal then tells him to go to the training room tomorrow morning and not to be late, to which Subai agrees and replies that he got it. The principal then thinks that young people these days are getting harder and harder to fool, while Subai thinks that rumors about the principal being a cunning old fox are absolutely true. The next day, in the training room, the principal informs them that this time, the 100 Schools League is organized by the military. Although the resources allocated to their school by the Ministry of Education aren't as abundant as those given to prestigious schools like Imperial City Martial University and Magic City Martial University, he hopes that they can still achieve better results. The principal then begins his roll call and calls Hu Qingshu from the 3rd year, a bronze intermediate wood ability user, Bai Ningbing, and Zhao Tianxiang. Yang Qiang tells Mani that it is really unfair since Jiangzhou Martial University was established later, so the training resources allocated to their students are much fewer compared to those of prestigious schools. Mani agrees and tells Yang Qiang that she had heard that their school's rankings in previous years have always been quite low. The principal then calls Subai, to which he replies that he is there. A moment later, after finishing the roll call, the principal informs them that this year, there are 10 representatives from their school participating in the league, and they are all the most outstanding students from each grade. He then announces something shocking. This year, the captain of their school's league team will be Subai. Subai and the other students are stunned. He can't believe it and shouts to the principal that he must be mistaken. However, the principal explains to them that having Subai as the captain was a decision made after a discussion by the school committee. Ningbing tells the principal that Qingshu is the strongest among them in both strength and experience, and asks why a freshman should be appointed as the captain. Tianxiang agrees and tells the principal that Subai is just a bronze beginner-level power user, which means Subai is a whole rank below Qingshu, and asks why Subai should be the captain. However, the principal simply tells them that they have all seen the news over the past couple of days, and that Subai has the strength to slay a gold-tier vicious beast. He then adds that if any of them want to be captain, they should go ahead and slay a gold-tier vicious beast, and he will immediately replace Subai. Ningbing teasingly asks who really knows how Subai killed the gold-tier vicious beast, suggesting that it might have just been a coincidence. Tianxiang agrees and shouts that he doesn't believe it either. Tianxiang then angrily tells Subai that he is challenging him right now, but Subai simply raises both his hands as a sign of surrender. Ningbing then challenges him as well, and the other seniors glare at him in anger, making him panic and quickly explain that he really has no idea about the whole captain thing. Meanwhile, he thinks to himself that the principal is being too much and wonders if this makes him the target of public criticism. The principal simply walks away, telling them that there are no other matters, so they should go back and prepare. He then informs them that there are less than 20 days left until the league, so he looks forward to seeing their performance in the competition. Subai immediately runs away, thinking that the principal sure runs fast. Tianxiang angrily asks him where he is going, but Subai simply explains that he has something to take care of and will head back to the dorm first. Ningbing tells the others that Subai is such a coward and that he doesn't believe he could kill a gold-tier vicious beast. Tianxiang tells Ningbing not to rush and to just wait because when they get to the league, he will make Subai regret it. Later, in the men's dorm, Subai tells Xiaoba that he is in for a treat and grabs a bronze-level core from his bag. He comments that the principal kept his word and wonders if he was right in thinking that 15 bronze-tier beast cores should be enough to level up. He then puts the core in Xiaoba's bowl, while Xiaoba pushes Bai away from his food. Subai assures Bai that there is something for him too, and places a chi blood elixir in Bai's bowl since its level is too low, so he decided to level it up with an elixir first. He is then shocked when he sees that Xiaoba finishes his food immediately and tells Xiaoba that it really can eat a lot. He then tears up, thinking that Xiaoba's bites could be worth hundreds of thousands or even millions. He is even more shocked when he sees Xiaoba still chasing the core bag in hunger. He asks Xiaoba if he still wants more and wonders how much it needs to eat to evolve. He then puts the remaining cores in Xiaoba's bowl while telling it that if it can't evolve, he will give all the resources to Bai from now on, which Bai agrees to. However, when Xiaoba finishes all 15 bronze-level beast cores, it releases a strong burst of energy, and Subai excitedly realizes that it is evolving. Xiaoba and Bai's evolution causes the entire men's dorm to shake, making the students panic and wonder what is going on and if there is an earthquake. A moment later, the system congratulates him for upgrading Xiaoba to Bronze Intermediate. Its stats increase significantly, and its talent level improves as well. Subai laughs victoriously, seeing that Xiaoba has finally leveled up. He notes that although Xiaoba's number of talents didn't increase, its attribute values and talent levels have definitely improved. The system then congratulates him again for upgrading Bai to high-level normal and awakening its ghostly phantom step ability. Bai's stats also increase significantly, and it now possesses 3 skills: Sharp Claws, Bloodthirst, and Ghostly Phantom Step. Subai pats Bai's head proudly and tells them that Bai's agility attribute is really high, calling it explosive growth. He then praises them for completing their upgrades. Checking his own status window, he sees that he has received an attribute boost of 30% from Xiaoba and 20% from Bai, along with a slight increase in his own stats. Feeling satisfied, he proudly shouts that now, they just need to wait to show off their skills on the stage of the 100 Schools League. The next day, he arrived at the Zhangzhou Martial University Library and was surprised by how big it was. The librarian told him that their school's library had been there even before the university was founded, and that it was the cornerstone of Zhangzhou Martial University's heritage. She took his ID and told him that she didn't expect a freshman to already have 180 credits. She then informed him that the Beast Tamer books he was looking for were on the side, and that he should feel free to look up whatever information he needed, which he agreed to and thanked her for. He then looked around the Beast Tamer bookshelf and was amazed that there were actually quite a few books on beast taming. He thought that it would take him a long time to go through all of them. He then saw a Luo fan book and felt like he had heard that name somewhere before. As he started reading, he came across a passage. The heavens and death converge, the undying soul, divine weapons gather, sacred beasts armed, the roots of grass and trees is origin confluence. He realized that he had already mastered origin confluence and wondered what undying soul and sacred beasts armed meant, without noticing the seniors nearby. Qingshu recognized him, but then a man commented that a beast tamer had no future, no matter how much they studied. Tianxiang told Qingshu that they should go to the other side, and they walked away while Subai was still deep in thought. He hadn't expected Senior Luofan to be so powerful that he had created 3 divine skills: Origin Confluence, Sacred Beasts Armed, and Undying Soul. He also figured out that Luofan had even single-handedly fought against the invasion of all the tribes, but he thought it was a pity that Luofan was eventually outnumbered and died on the battlefield. He realized he needed to read Luofan's book carefully, but he was shocked when the book suddenly lit up in red. He panicked, wondering what was going on, why the book was floating and why he felt like a force was flowing into his body. A moment later, the librarian asked him what was the matter, and he asked if he could borrow the book while handing her Luofan's book. She noticed that the book didn't have a classification label and guessed that it wasn't from the library. He replied that it shouldn't be the case because he had taken it from the bookshelf. She then tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. She tried her best, but it felt as solid as steel, making her ask why she couldn't open it. Subai was surprised by this and explained that it couldn't be right because he had just been reading it a moment ago. He then told her to let him take a look, and when he tried, he easily opened the book, shocking the librarian. He then asked her how it was possible that she couldn't open it, to which she replied that maybe something had gone wrong. She told him to just take it and read it, and he could return it whenever he was done. He then asked if he could borrow it for as long as he wanted, to which she replied yes. After he was gone, the librarian immediately called the principal to report that the book he had left on the bookshelf had been taken by Subai. The principal stood up in shock, unable to believe that Subai had actually opened that book. The librarian confirmed that she had seen it with her own eyes, making the principal praise her. He then said to Luofan that the person he had been waiting for had finally appeared after 100 years, and that if he, in the underworld, was aware of it, he should be very happy. 2 weeks later, it was time for the 100 Schools League. A reporter announced that the league was divided into 5 major battle zones: East, South, West, North, and Central, and that each battle zone would have 2 qualifying teams. She added that the 8 martial universities of Jiangzhou province would all gather at Jiangzhou Martial University to compete. A vlogger then told his viewers that tickets for that year's 100 Schools League were hard to come by, so he would be live streaming the entire event for them, with some small gifts along the way. On the other hand, a red uniformed lady called out to the blue uniformed Longying Martial University students, taunting them and asking if they dared to show up when they were just there to get beaten. However, the Longying students simply replied that who would get beaten was still up in the air and called the red uniformed students trash from Fuchuan. The audience and students then gathered in the arena, and in the player waiting area, Yuxin asked her students if everyone was there. Qingshu replied that Subai hadn't arrived yet, but everyone else was present. Tianxiang asked if he was right in thinking that Subai wouldn't back out at the last minute since he was their team captain. Just then, Subai arrived, asking how he could possibly back out at the last minute, and proudly told them that he was there. Yuxin was amazed to see him and wondered why she felt like Subai's strength had improved significantly when it had only been a few days. She then told him that it was good he had arrived and informed him that the match was about to start, so they needed to arrange their lineup. He told her not to worry because he had it all planned out. Kai then shouted for everyone to keep quiet and reminded them that just a month ago, the myriad beast clans had deployed large-scale forces to pin down the military's frontline capabilities. Meanwhile, smaller groups of vicious beasts had bypassed the front lines and attacked several provinces near military bases. The Martial University students in the attacked provinces were nearly wiped out by the myriad beast clans, with fewer than 1 in 100 surviving. Kai then passionately and loudly asked them if they should avenge it, to which the students and teachers shouted in unison that they must avenge them, they must win, and they should kill all the vicious beasts. Kai praised them for their strong desire to protect humanity and asked how the vicious beasts could not be destroyed if their human race possessed such spirit. He then declared that this was the very purpose of the 100 Schools League and officially announced the opening of the Jiangzhou Provincial League. Kai then began explaining the rules. Each team could have up to 5 participants in each match, and the loser would be eliminated while the winner continued. He added that the team with the last remaining participants would be declared the winner. After explaining the team battle format, he instructed the players to proceed with the random draw for matchups. The monitor then displayed the matchups. The host then called the first participants to the field. Qingshu turned to Yushin and commented that they had actually drawn Qingyun Martial University. Yushin responded that Longying had already faced Shinmin and that their lineup hadn't been decided yet. The principal then walked over to them and asked Subai if he had arranged the lineup. Everyone greeted the principal, but Subai simply and confidently replied that for the lineup, he would go first, and the remaining 4 could figure out their order themselves. His response left everyone speechless, but Qingshu managed to ask if that was really his strategy. He suggested that they should make targeted arrangements based on Qingyun Martial University's lineup. Tianxiang agreed with Qingshu and told Subai that he could go first, but asked him what would happen if he couldn't win, reminding him that it would be an embarrassment for Jiangzhou Martial University. Subai simply assured them that he would not disappoint them. Meanwhile, the principal noticed that Subai's level had increased significantly in just a few days, and he was impressed by Subai's rapid comprehension. Leaning in, the principal whispered to Subai, advising him not to go too far and to at least leave some soup for his seniors to drink. Otherwise, if he offended them all, it would be difficult for him to get by in school in the future. A moment later, Longying Martial University lost, and Jinmin Martial University won. Yushin commented that Jinmin was incredibly strong that year for defeating Longying so quickly. She then told Subai that it was his turn to take the stage. As he walked toward the stage, he proudly told his team to watch closely, which irritated Tianxiang. Annoyed, Tianxiang told everyone that he wanted to see just how capable Subai really was. Yanran, Jiagong, and the other students cheered for him loudly as he walked to the center of the stage to face his opponent. The man standing across from him smirked and asked if he was right in assuming that Subai was the freshman who had slain the gold-tier vicious beast. Subai simply nodded and replied, "I am." Qingyun Martial University's squad captain, Li Lingfeng, who was at mid-bronze rank, activated his power and told Subai that he would show him what true power was like. However, Subai simply bent down and told Xiaoba to come out, making Lingfeng ask if that was his tamed beast. Lingfeng then laughed loudly, mocking him for bringing his household pet to the competition. Subai, unbothered, took out some food and explained that he had been in a rush that morning and hadn't had breakfast yet, while Xiaoba stretched its body. The students from other schools wondered why he had brought a little turtle to the competition, and teasingly shouted that Jiangzhou Martial University must not have anyone worth mentioning anymore if they were letting someone like him compete. Yushin couldn't believe that Subai was casually eating peanuts and drinking cola on stage. Tianxiang pointed out that Subai was seriously underestimating his opponent and reminded everyone that Lingfeng was at mid-bronze rank. Meanwhile, Subai sat down on the stage with his cola and told Xiaoba not to embarrass him after consuming so many beast cores. Xiaoba positioned himself on the floor and released a strong wave of energy, making Lingfeng question whether that turtle was really Subai's tamed beast. Suddenly, Xiaoba started growing bigger, transforming into a massive black tortoise. Lingfeng shouted in shock, calling it terrifying. The entire audience was stunned, watching as Xiaoba's body expanded. The spectators began shouting that Xiaoba's skin looked like armor, shining like metal, and that it could probably crush anyone with a single slap. Yanran smiled, realizing that Subai had become even stronger, while Chaoan, shocked, asked when Xiaoba had gotten so big. Subai casually shook his cola and ordered Xiaoba to finish the fight quickly. Xiaoba then raised his hand, confusing Lingfeng, before easily slapping him away. Lingfeng, now on the ground, couldn't believe how fast it had happened. Subai told him to hold on a little longer because he wanted to finish his cola before stepping down. Lingfeng, furious, thought Subai was being arrogant. He stood up, convinced that the first hit had only been a sneak attack, and decided to focus all his power. Determined to prove himself, Lingfeng activated his ability, turning his entire body into golden stone, and roared that they would see who was truly tougher. He then jumped and launched his rock fist at Xiaoba. Xiaoba simply slapped him away again, this time sending him off the field. Yu Xin, still in shock, asked if it was already over, realizing that Subai had actually won. The principal laughed, saying that the younger generation was truly formidable, while Tianxiang shouted that Xiaoba was way too strong. A man in the audience questioned whether the captain of Qingyun Martial University was actually an idiot, wondering how Lingfeng hadn't dodged such a massive attack. Another man responded that it was clear he didn't understand physics well, and explained that while Xiaoba's movements didn't seem fast, they were deceiving because of his size. Other spectators shouted that the turtle was unstoppable, amazed that even a mid-tier bronze-level ability user couldn't stop it. Another man scoffed, reminding them that a creature capable of slaying a gold-tier vicious beast wasn't something that could be easily dealt with. Chaoan turned to Yanran and asked if he was right in remembering that Xiaoba hadn't been this strong before. Kai then announced Jiangzhou Martial University's victory in the first match and called for the next contestant from Qingyun Martial University, Zhang Xuan, to step onto the stage. Zhang Xuan, also at mid-bronze rank, jumped onto the stage. Knowing she couldn't let Xiaoba get close to her, she decided to rely on speed to win. She immediately began dashing from side to side at high speed, making Xiaoba dizzy as he tried to follow her movements. Kai announced that Zhang Xuan was using her speed advantage to stay outside the range of the giant turtle's attacks. The audience cheered for her, shouting that this was how they should fight. Zhang Xuan continued moving at high speed, thinking that as long as she could find an opening, one strike would be enough to win. Yu Xin turned to Qingshu, pointing out that Zhang Xuan had been dodging and looking for an opportunity while Xiaoba couldn't land a hit on her at all. Qingshu responded that Subai was still underestimating his opponent. At that moment, Zhang Xuan suddenly rushed towards Subai, who was still casually eating his snack. Xiaoba attempted to stop her, trying to corner her with his movements, but she managed to evade him in time. She landed a short distance away from Xiaoba and then charged straight at Subai, shouting that she could just take down the beast tamer directly. She thought that at this point, it was too late for him to reverse the situation. Yu Xin shouted in alarm, warning that Zhang Xuan was going to attack Subai directly. Yanran also cried out for Subai to be careful, but he remained unfazed, continuing to sip his cola even as Zhang Xuan swung her sword at him. She confidently declared that he had lost. But before her strike could land, Xiaoba intercepted her. With a swift motion, Xiaoba slapped her away with his tail. The audience was amazed by Xiaoba's reaction speed and powerful counterattack. Yanran sighed in relief, realizing how close it had been. Tianxiang, unable to believe it, asked if Subai had seriously won again and remarked that it had all ended too fast. Even Qingshu had to admit that Subai was truly strong. Subai casually walked over to Zhang Xuan, who was injured on the ground. Stretching, he remarked that he was finally full. He told her that she had gotten too close to him and that Xiaoba's strike had been a bit too harsh this time. He also advised her to heal quickly. Zhang Xuan, accepting her defeat, nodded in agreement. As he walked back to Xiaoba, he smirked and declared that he was going to get serious now. Then, looking at the opposing team, he asked who was coming up next. Subai then easily defeated the third contestant and called for the next. Once again, he defeated the fourth contestant without breaking a sweat, even taking a selfie in the process. Finally, he defeated the fifth contestant from Qingyun Martial University and won the battle. The audience was in shock, witnessing Subai eating peanuts the entire time, relying on a turtle to fight in the ring, and still winning. They shouted that they had never seen such an unbridled contestant in their entire lives, while others cheered that Subai was incredibly cool. His friends chanted, "One man versus 5 but still won," and other students began copying them. As he stepped down from the stage, he couldn't help but feel that something sounded off. It almost felt like they were calling him a turtle. Yu Xin then praised him for doing a great job, and the principal told him that he had single-handedly defeated the formidable Qingyun, bringing great honor to Jiangzhou Martial University. He thanked them for their praise, and Yu Xin informed the team that the morning matches were over, so they should take a break. After lunch, the second round would begin. The principal then announced that during the league, the cafeteria would be open to all contestants for free, and encouraged everyone to enjoy the food to replenish their energy. Subai immediately asked for confirmation, wanting to make sure it was truly free of charge. The principal assured him that it was. Meanwhile, in the Fuchuan Martial University lounge, the Fuchuan principal addressed his students, warning them that if they faced Jiangzhou Martial University in the next match, Subai would likely be sent in again. One of the students pointed out that Subai's tamed beast was almost invincible in close combat and asked how they should counter it. The principal responded that if they really ended up facing Jiangzhou Martial University, Maokai would have to handle Subai. A female student agreed, noting that their team captain was a poison-type user, meaning there would be no need for close combat. Maokai nodded and assured them that when the time came, he would keep his distance and use poison to take Xiaoba down. Meanwhile, in the Shinmin Martial University lounge, the Shinmin principal encouraged his students not to be discouraged. He acknowledged that Subai was strong, but his weaknesses were also very obvious. He explained that their only way to win was to find the right opportunity to bypass the turtle's defense and defeat Subai directly. Shinmin's team captain, Li Feng, agreed with the principal and told his team that if they faced Subai that afternoon, he would take him on. He believed that Zhang Xuan's strategy that morning had been correct, but she simply hadn't been fast enough. The principal agreed, reminding Li Feng that as a speed-focused fighter with enhanced combat skills, his best chance was to wait for the right moment to strike. Hours later, Kai took the stage, announcing that the morning matches had been truly exciting. He praised the students for their determination, fearlessness, and tenacious fighting spirit. He then declared that the second round of the competition was about to begin and that they would now proceed with the random draw. In the audience, someone commented that it felt like the other members of Jiangzhou didn't even need to compete, since Subai alone was strong enough to defeat all the other schools. Another person responded that it must be great to have such a teammate. However, another spectator warned the Jiangzhou team not to get complacent, reminding them that they were still competing within their own province. Once they faced martial universities from other provinces, Jiangzhou Martial University would struggle so badly that they wouldn't even be able to hold their heads up. Tianxiang then turned to his teammates, admitting that Jiangzhou had always struggled to hold its head up in previous years. But now, with Subai carrying them, they had become even more irrelevant. Kai then announced the results of the second round draw for the Provincial League. The first match would be Subai from Jiangzhou Martial University versus Li Feng from Shinmin Martial University. Li Feng, upon hearing the results, figured that just as expected, Jiangzhou had sent Subai to take the lead. However, he was relieved, knowing that they had already prepared a strategy specifically to counter him. Subai told him not to be so nervous and to just endure for a little while. It would be over soon. Kai then announced the start of the match. Li Feng, who was at high-level bronze rank, immediately increased his agility and shouted for Subai not to be too arrogant. He then activated his skill Clear Wind Step, allowing him to run at high speeds. Xiaoba tried to attack, but Li Feng was too fast, easily dodging Xiaoba's attempts. Seizing an opening, Li Feng launched a powerful kick at Xiaoba, putting all his strength into the attack. But when his foot made contact, Xiaoba didn't even flinch. Li Feng's eyes widened in disbelief. No matter how much force he used, he couldn't even break through Xiaoba's defense. Xiaoba then attacked him with its tail, but Feng managed to jump away in time to dodge it. The audience noticed that Xiaoba was unable to hit Feng and laughingly shouted that Xiaoba seemed provoked by Feng and was angry because it was howling repeatedly. One man then asked if they thought Feng had a chance of winning if he suddenly charged at Subai, to which another man responded that Feng might actually have a chance and asked if it wasn't just bullying Subai's title for being so dim-witted. On the other hand, Feng was busy trying to lure Xiaoba, and Qingshu noticed that Feng was attempting to draw Xiaoba away from Subai. This made Yuxin ask what Subai was doing and why he wasn't coming up with a solution. Tianxiang then noticed that Subai seemed to be looking for something, but they were shocked when they saw that he had just grabbed a cola while Xiaoba was still busy chasing Feng. Minutes later, Subai was casually drinking his cola without a care for the situation behind him. Feng then realized that at this distance, even a tail swipe wouldn't work. Seeing an opportunity, Feng rushed towards Subai while shouting that he was looking down on him too much. He then launched a kick at him and proudly shouted that he, Li Feng, would make him pay the price. However, Subai simply called out to Xiaoba, who activated his gravity skill, causing Feng to freeze in the air like a stone. Feng was stunned, wondering what was going on and why he couldn't move. Feng then slowly fell to the floor, seeing Xiaoba's illusion. Subai then told Xiaoba to stop playing around and finish the battle. Xiaoba activated his black tortoise gravity power and aimed it at Feng, who was still floating. Feng tried to protest and asked Xiaoba to wait, wanting to know what he was planning, but Xiaoba simply released the attack. Feng was sent flying into the audience chairs, piercing through them due to the sheer force. The audience understood that it wasn't that Feng wasn't strong enough, it was simply that Subai was too overpowered. Many admitted that if they were in Feng's place, they would surrender right away rather than face Subai. A female member of Feng's team turned to their principal, asking what they should do, and pointing out that Feng had already been severely injured. Shinmin's principal replied that they had no choice but to give up. Kai then announced that, unfortunately, Shinmin Martial University had chosen to forfeit against the powerful Subai from Jiangzhou Martial University. He then called Funchuan Martial University next. Some members of the audience questioned how Jinmin could forfeit without even putting up a fight, but others believed that Subai was simply too strong, making forfeiting the smarter choice rather than suffering unnecessary humiliation. Yushin was glad that Shinmin had voluntarily forfeited, allowing Subai to conserve his strength for Funchuan. However, Tianxiang questioned whether Subai even needed to save his strength. Qingshu then pointed out that Funchuan's captain was a poison-type user, meaning the fight wouldn't be so easy to deal with. Kai then announced the start of the match, and Xiaoba loudly growled at Maokai. However, Maokai told them to wait, and not to rush into the fight just yet. A mid-level bronze rank, Maokai admitted that Subai was very strong and that he was no match for him. He then proposed a deal, confusing Subai, who asked him what kind of deal he was talking about. Maokai, who's stalling, activated his power behind his back. He then understood that Maokai was just trying to stall for time because poison-type users took a long time to activate their powers. He then ordered Xiaoba to attack, which Xiaoba followed, but Maokai released his toxic poison while asking him if he had only just realized it now, and telling him that he was already too late. Maokai then arrogantly shouted that no matter what kind of god-tier beast tamer he was, he couldn't escape his poison mist. He released the poison smoke at Xiaoba, making him realize that there was no way to avoid it. Qingshu shouted in worry that Subai had underestimated Maokai, adding that he had heard Maokai had poisoned quite a number of high-level beasts in his previous trials. Yushin panicked upon hearing this and asked what they should do now, but the principal calmly told them not to panic because the outcome had not yet been decided. Xiaoba tried his best to attack with his eyes closed because of the smoke, but Maokai easily dodged and ran past him while laughingly shouting that they couldn't see in the poison mist, but he was unaffected. Maokai then thought that he should see how long Subai could last in his poison mist and laughed, thinking that Subai had been too careless because once he released poison, the competition was as good as over. Maokai then saw Subai sitting on the floor, making him wonder if he was meditating to resist the corrosion of the poison mist. However, Maokai arrogantly thought that what Subai was facing was not just the poison mist. He then jumped behind him and launched his sharp claws, but a shield appeared just in time to block Maokai's attack. Subai asked Maokai if he was really attacking from behind while in the poison mist and told him that it was too bad he had run into him. Maokai shouted in disbelief, asking how it was possible and how Subai could possibly withstand his full-power poison claw attack in the poison mist. The principal explained to the others that it was Origin Confluence, making them ask what it was. The principal replied that it was a high-level beast tamer talent, and that Subai had already learned to transfer his beast's taming defense onto himself. Subai then told Maokai that they should wrap it up because his poison mist smelled terrible, which surprised Maokai. However, Maokai was even more shocked when Xiaoba suddenly appeared in front of him, making him realize that he had been exposed. Just like that, Maokai was thrown out of the field. Chaoan proudly shouted that Subai was too overpowered and that he had knocked the poison-type user out of his own poison mist. Yanran then shouted to Subai that she wouldn't let him leave her too far behind. The audience began to cheer for Subai, and Xiaoba roared loudly. Kai then announced that since Maokai from Funchuan Martial University was unable to continue fighting, Funchuan had also chosen to forfeit, and the champion of the provincial league was Jiangzhou Martial University, led by Subai. Subai then got down from the stage with Xiaoba, who had returned to his original form. The principal told him that he had brought glory to Jiangzhou Martial University and praised him for doing a great job. Subai responded that since that was the case, the principal should allocate some additional resources for his cultivation. This made the principal realize that Subai was trying to take advantage of him, but he thought to himself that he was not so easily tricked. The principal then told them that since Jiangzhou Martial University had won the Provincial League Championship, the military would award them military merit points, which they could exchange for resources at the logistics department when the time came. However, Tianxiang pointed out that only Subai had participated in the competition and asked if the rest of them even had anything to do with the reward. The principal couldn't answer and just reminded them that in 3 days, they would be heading to Luo City to participate in the regional league. He then asked if they had confidence, to which Subai proudly replied that he had confidence, but the others did not. After that, the principal turned around, telling them that he knew everyone was exhausted, so they should go back and rest well. He reminded them that they needed to prepare for the regional league in 3 days and should do their best. Subai tried to bring up the matter of resources again, but the principal interrupted him, saying that he looked forward to Subai's outstanding performance and would see him in 3 days. This made Subai think that as soon as it was about resources, the principal ran off so quickly. Later, news about the Provincial League of the 100 Schools League spread everywhere. Everyone heard that the top 3 schools in the league were Imperial Capital Martial University, Magic City Martial University, and the Great Wall Guard Army Martial University. A reporter added that many prodigies had performed exceptionally well in the league, but among them, the most dazzling was Subai from Jiangzhou Martial University. The reporter explained that Subai won the Jiangzhou Provincial Championship by defeating 5 opponents alone in all 3 battles. They then showed an image of Subai while saying that a strong youth will make a country strong and expressed hope that students from martial arts schools would learn from Subai, strive for first place, and bring glory to their schools. This amazed the citizens. Meanwhile, in the Jiangzhou Military University training room, Subai arrived and was glad to have finally found a quiet place. He then let Bai come out and told it that he knew it was anxious, but there would definitely be opportunities for it to take the stage later. He patted Bai's head while mentioning that he had only managed to exchange 4 silver high-tier beast cores with his military merit points, so Bai should eat them sparingly. Bai eagerly reached for the core, and when Subai handed it over, Bai devoured it happily. Subai was then shocked when Bai released a strong power of light, and the system appeared, notifying him that Bai had advanced to bronze initial tier and evolved into a sharp gold-white tiger. He was amazed that after just one core, Bai had leveled up immediately. He then confirmed that Bai had truly activated the White Tiger bloodline and decided to give it the remaining silver high-tier cores, which excited Bai even more. He then told Bai to take its time eating since no one would compete with it. He asked if, after consuming these cores, it should be able to level up again. However, after Bai finished all the cores, Subai was confused to see no immediate reaction. Just as he was about to be disappointed, Bai once again released a bright light of power, which spread throughout the training room. Subai was stunned as he watched Bai transform into a white tiger, causing him to excitedly shout that it was unbelievably cool and way cooler than Xiaoba. The system then displayed that 30% of Bai's white tiger bloodline had been activated, significantly boosting all its attributes and enhancing its talent. Upon seeing this, Subai told Bai that it had definitely been worth giving it 4 silver high-tier beast cores, as its attributes were now heaven-defying. He then praised Bai for being a good boy and told it that the regional league would depend on its performance. Meanwhile, in the imperial capital, inside a massive mansion, a man watching the news found Subai quite interesting. He noted that Subai seemed to have many secrets. The man then ordered his secretary to investigate Subai, adding that it was possible that Subai's turtle was even more outrageous than the one Luo Fan had back in the day. The secretary respectfully agreed. 3 days later, at the Luohe Martial University competition venue, the Jiangzhou team arrived and confirmed that the Luohe Martial University competition venue was several times larger than theirs. They then heard the students of Luohe cheering for their university, making the principal notice that Luohe was trying to intimidate them. However, he just noticed something and asked the principal why there was an empty area in the audience. The principal replied that he had heard that only 9 martial universities were participating this time and that one university had voluntarily forfeited. He asked the principal if that meant one university would get a bye during the random draw since only 9 martial universities were participating, to which the principal replied yes and told them that it all came down to luck because whoever got the bye would advance directly to the next round. This made him hope they wouldn't get the bye during the draw later because he was counting on playing more matches to earn military contributions to feed his gluttonous pets. Qingshu then told the principal that no matter what, they should allow him to participate this time. The lady in their group agreed and shouted to the principal that they also requested to participate, making the principal laugh and assure them that this time, all of them would have the opportunity to compete. A moment later, the professor told everyone that the draw was complete and announced the matchups. But minutes later, Subai was shocked when he heard their school name being called for a bye. The principal laughed and told him that he was truly their lucky charm because they had skipped the first round and gone straight to the next. Yuxin then told him that he had such good luck that he should buy a lottery ticket, but he was just disappointed, wondering why he was so unlucky when he really wanted to compete. The first match then began, and currently, Fushuan Martial University's contestant was struggling to hold on. 2 hours later, the professor announced that the first round quarterfinals had concluded and began to announce the results of the second round draw. Everyone was then shocked when they heard that the university with a bye that round was still Jiangzhou Martial University and furiously asked what the heck was going on and if there was some kind of shady business happening. The audience loudly questioned what kind of luck it was and shouted that Jiangzhou Martial University hadn't done anything, just sat in the audience watching the matches. Others shouted that they had traveled all that way just to watch Subai sit in the ring, eating peanuts and drinking cola. The lady with pink hair asked if it could be that Luohe Martial University was afraid of facing Subai directly, so they deliberately gave Jiangzhou Martial University a bye. The lady with yellow hair agreed, shouting that the Luohe competition system was unfair and asking how such a strong competitor like Subai kept getting a bye. The military representative explained to everyone that after a thorough inspection, there was no evidence of any bias or foul play by Jiangzhou Martial University, and the competition continued. The principal excitedly shouted that it was great because it meant they had ranked 3rd in that competition zone, and as long as they won one more match, they could participate in the finals of the 5 major competition zones. However, Subai was frustrated, wondering why they had gotten another bye and if they were ever going to let them compete. 1 hour later, the professor announced that an exciting moment was coming soon and that the final match of that round's competition zone was about to begin. The professor added that the next match was Jiangzhou Martial University versus Lan's Martial University. Qingshu told the principal that it was finally their turn, and Yongqiang told the principal to let him go first this time. The principal told everyone to calm down and that although they had been very lucky, they still couldn't be complacent. He then called for Yongqiang and Ningbing to go up first and second, then Qingqing and Qingshu for 3rd and 4th, while Subai would go last for the grand finale. They all agreed and swore that they would definitely bring glory to the school, while Subai was disappointed from waiting too long and thought that it seemed like there was no chance for him. The match then began with Yongqiang, who tried to take on a bronze mid-level opponent with his bronze low-level strength, but in the end, Yongqiang lost narrowly. Next was Ningbing, who stepped onto the stage and immediately went into a berserk state, completely abandoning defense and fighting recklessly. However, Ningbing actually forced his opponent to retreat continuously and won the second match. The third match featured Qing, the school beauty, who proved that her combat skills were no joke. With a soft whip technique that combined both offense and defense, she sent her opponent flying out of the ring and won the match. Yusin proudly clapped and shouted that they had won again, while the principal suddenly felt like the strength of the other students had skyrocketed, making him wonder if Subai had influenced them. Meanwhile, Subai wondered when it would finally be his turn and sadly thought about his military contribution. After Qing, the host called Qingshu. Qingshu told his opponent that both of them could come at him together because it would save him time. His opponent told him not to get too cocky, otherwise he would lose miserably. The professor explained that the competition rules allowed one person to challenge multiple opponents at the same time and announced that the match was about to begin. Subai saw that the match was 1-on-2, making him realize that Qingshu really had no intention of giving him a chance to compete. Qingshu then closed his eyes, raised his finger, and apologized to his opponents. Suddenly, he released a glowing massive tree behind him, making the audience notice that he possessed a wood-type supernatural ability. Qingshu then ordered the tree to attack his opponents with its leaves. His opponents covered their faces, shouting that the leaves seemed suspicious, only to be sliced when the leaves hit them. One of them shouted to hold on because Qingshu's psychic power wouldn't last much longer. Subai was amazed that a wood-type user could summon a millennium-old maple tree like that and thought that Qingshu's psychic power was pretty terrifying. Meanwhile, the principal noticed that Qingshu's strength had increased yet again, proving that he was truly living up to being from that family. The audience saw that Jiangzhou Martial University's current batch was truly full of hidden talents, with one dark horse after another emerging. However, they still believed that Subai was the strongest since his tamed beast had already defeated a golden-ranked opponent. On the other hand, the two opponents gathered in the middle, seeing no signs of Qingshu's attacks weakening. Qingshu gathered some leaves in his hand, ordered them to break through, and then threw them at his opponents. The leaves struck them, causing them to float away and get thrown out of the stage. The professor then announced that Jiangzhou Martial University had won that round and congratulated both Jiangzhou Martial University and Luohe Martial University for advancing to the national finals. The principal told Qingshu that his performance this time had surprised everyone and praised him for doing well. Qingshu thanked the principal, but then the principal said that the real hero of the competition was still Subai. This shocked Subai, making him wonder why he was considered a hero and if the principal was making fun of him for not even getting on stage. The principal then explained that if it weren't for Subai getting 2 consecutive buys in the draw, they wouldn't have won so easily. Everyone was left speechless. The principal then told everyone to get some rest and be ready because in 1 week, they would be heading to the national finals. He also informed them that, in addition to the military contribution rewards earned by each student in the competition, the school would provide extra resources as training rewards. This made everyone cheer loudly and excitedly, while Subai sighed frustratingly, thinking that he was going back empty-handed this time and needed to figure out how to gather resources to feed his gluttonous pets. Meanwhile, in the Lin family mansion, Yuan called Yanran, who was busy training, to tell her that it was time to eat. However, she continued training, replying that she wasn't hungry yet and wanted to practice for another hour. Yuan knew that ever since Subai had participated in the 100 Schools League, all Yanran did every day was watch Subai's matches and train like crazy, completely ignoring the balance between work and rest. She then told Yuan that the pills he had given her were almost used up, and asked if he could help her ask her father for more because she wanted to increase her strength as quickly as possible. Yuan agreed and walked away, thinking that so many top families in the imperial capital had proposed marriage to Yanran's father, but she had rejected them all with a single word. Yuan really had no idea what kind of potion Subai had given her. 7 days later, they arrived in Magic City. Everyone was amazed to see the Magic City University gate made of solid gold and sparkling. Subai asked if he was right in thinking that the gate alone must have cost billions, and commented that it was a waste. However, the principal replied that it was worth more than just billions because the materials alone had cost 1.8 billion. He added that the gate was built in 1 day by 20 gold level and 5 platinum level experts working together. The motto of Magic City Martial Arts University and that grand gate were both meant to showcase the spirit that only the strong could protect the nation. A man appeared at the gate to welcome them and called the principal Zhou, introducing himself as Zhang Ming, the vice president of the student council at Magic City Martial Arts University. Ming welcomed Zhou and told them to follow him, to which Zhou agreed. Yongqiang whispered to Mani that Magic City Martial Arts University sure knew how to put on airs because their principal had traveled all the way there in person, yet they had only sent the student council's vice president to greet them. Mani responded that if it had been someone from Imperial City Martial Arts University, she bet their principal would have come out personally to welcome them. As they followed Ming inside the campus, Subai noticed something and asked Principal Zhou what it was. Zhou replied that it was the gravity adjustment training ground. Subai commented that if their academy had one of those, they could train at least 100 silver-level students every year, making Zhou feel hurt. A moment later, they arrived at a huge building, and Ming explained that it was the hotel where they would be staying and dining. Ming then told them that the first floor offered a 24-hour buffet, with all the ingredients being meat from ferocious beasts of various species, cooked by top chefs. He explained that the meals were highly beneficial for enhancing a martial artist's blood energy and that there was no limit to how much they could eat. Subai asked Ming if it was really unlimited, to which Ming replied yes, and added that since they had come from far away, Magic City Martial Arts University would not let them go hungry, so they should eat to their heart's content. Subai immediately ran toward the building, laughing and telling Xiaoba and Bai that they were in for a feast. Ming turned to Zhou and asked if Subai was starving or something. Yongqiang responded that they had no idea how much Subai's turtle could eat. Upon hearing this, Mani panicked, realizing that if Subai went in first, there would be nothing left for them to eat. The rest of the team then rushed inside, knowing they had to hurry up or risk going hungry that night, leaving Ming confused. Zhou simply explained to Ming that young people were full of energy and apologized for the scene. The next day, at the competition venue, Yongqiang was amazed by the sheer size of the place and excitedly shouted that the Magic City competition venue was on another level. Zhou called everyone over and told them to stop acting as if they had never seen the world before, then proceeded to explain the competition rules. Zhou informed them that the final tournament featured martial arts universities from 13 schools competing. Additionally, the Great Wall Guard Military Academy, being directly under the military, automatically entered the top 4, meaning there would be no buys. Yongqiang asked Zhou why the Great Wall Guard Military Academy got a free pass to the top 4, and Mani chimed in, saying that it was unfair. Zhou simply explained that it was because the Great Wall Guard Military Academy was a military genius training base. He added that they might not know this, but it was the only martial arts university located on the front lines of the battlefield against the multiracial invaders. Subai was shocked upon hearing this and thought that it sounded intense. Zhou agreed and explained that this was why the national finals were full of hidden talents, so they should never underestimate anyone. Zhou then told them that Subai should take the lead while Qingshu would anchor, which they all agreed to. A moment later, the host called for the teachers' and students' attention, asking them to settle down because the 100 schools competition finals were about to begin. She then announced the draw for the first round of matches. Jiangzhou Martial Arts University versus Yokohama Martial Arts University in the first match, Imperial City Martial Arts University versus East China Martial Arts University in the second match, and Magic City Martial Arts University versus Nanjing Martial Arts University in the third match. Zhou told his team that their luck wasn't bad since they didn't draw any of the top 3 universities in the first round. Yongqiang eagerly asked Zhou to let him go first because Yokohama Martial Arts University was about on par with them. However, Subai loudly protested, insisting that he should go first to show Jiangzhou Martial Arts University's attitude. In truth, he just wanted to earn military credits. He then entered the stage, and his opponent asked if he was Subai. His opponent went on to say that making it to the finals was already impressive enough for Jiangzhou Martial Arts University, but this was the end of the road for them. However, Subai simply called out Xiaoba and told it to finish the fight quickly. Xiaoba transformed into its massive form and let out a loud growl, shocking and amazing the Magic City audience. On the other hand, his opponent was stunned in fear and screamed that Xiaoba was way too big and that it had to be cheating. Xiaoba then effortlessly pushed his opponent out of the stage while the man continued shouting that he didn't accept it. Surprised by how weak his opponent was, Subai casually remarked that he hadn't even started eating his peanuts yet. His defeated opponent, still on the floor, shouted that he thought beast tamers were supposed to be weak, yet they were handling martial artists like it was nothing. A woman in the audience questioned why Subai had actually brought a small stool to the national finals, while a man filming the event asked if this wasn't too disrespectful. Another audience member then shouted at Subai's opponent, saying he must not have watched Subai's previous matches. Otherwise, he would have known that Subai's turtle had insane defense and strength. Subai continued munching on his peanuts on stage when a woman suddenly walked in and accused Jiangzhou Martial Arts University of humiliating them. She then dashed toward Xiaoba, shouting that she would make them pay. Meanwhile, Subai was too engrossed in reading a comic while eating his peanuts, thinking that it was really good. Xiaoba then countered the woman's attack with its heavy strike technique and easily won the battle within a minute. Yongqiang commented that not only did Subai snack on peanuts, but he also brought his own stool, asking if that was the attitude Subai had been talking about. Zhou sighed, saying that Subai really didn't know how to keep a low profile because he was humiliating his opponents. But then he smiled brightly and proudly wondered how he was supposed to face Yokohama Martial Arts University's Principal Chen after this. Qingshu interrupted Zhou's moment of happiness by warning him not to celebrate too early, pointing at the other stage and asking if that was the team captain from Imperial City Martial Arts University. Zhou then noticed a massive student launching an attack at a red-haired opponent. Suddenly, a powerful explosion erupted on the stage, and the huge student collapsed on the ground while the red-haired student stood in the same position, flames flickering his fingers as he apologized for hitting his opponent too hard. Zhou realized that the red-haired student was a fire attribute martial artist at the peak of silver level. Yongqiang acknowledged the terrifying strength of Imperial City Martial Arts University, while Qingshu noted that if the Great Wall Guard's military academy didn't step in, only Magic City Martial Arts University might be able to match them. A moment later, Subai won the match for Jiangzhou Martial Arts University. A member of Luohe Martial Arts University told his principal to let him handle Subai. Wang Mingkun, a silver rank martial artist, assured the principal that he would make Jiangzhou taste the feeling of 1 versus 5. The principal agreed and advised Mingkun to rely on his speed to win rather than going head-to-head with the turtle. Shortly after, the match between Jiangzhou Martial Arts University and Luohe Martial Arts University began, with Subai facing Wang Mingkun. Mingkun taunted him, saying he got lucky last round, but this time, Jiangzhou wouldn't be so fortunate. Subai noticed that Mingkun was a silver rank wind attribute ability user and told Xiaoba to go. Mingkun shouted for Subai to feel the power of the wind and claimed he would show him the strength of a silver rank. He then wrapped himself in strong air currents and dashed past Xiaoba using his wind-enhanced speed. However, Mingkun was shocked when he realized that Earth's gravity couldn't lock onto Xiaoba. Realizing he couldn't take on the turtle, Mingkun turned towards Subai and hurled a wind blade at him while calling him a bronze brat and telling him to say goodbye. However, Subai simply sipped his cola, annoyed that the wind was ruining his snack time. Mingkun unleashed several more wind blades to ensure Subai's defeat, feeling confident in his victory. As the smoke cleared, he casually remarked that he might have hit a bit too hard and told Subai to rest and recover. But when the dust settled, Subai stood there completely unscathed and asked Mingkun what he had just said. Thanks to his golden shell, he hadn't suffered a single injury. Mingkun was in disbelief, questioning if this was source synchronization and how it was even possible. He also couldn't believe that someone had actually mastered Luo Fan's divine technique. After finishing his cola, Subai asked Mingkun if he was confident in his speed. He then called Xiaoba back and took out Bai, telling Mingkun that since he wanted to play with speed, he would oblige. Bai stretched its body as Subai announced that it was Bai's time to shine. Mingkun laughed mockingly and asked if Subai was stupid. The audience also burst into laughter, wondering if he had seriously brought out his pet cat. Some questioned which university he was from, while others commented on how cute the cat was. Even Subai's teammates were confused, wondering if he was trying to mock his opponent. First, he had taken out a stool, then a small cola, and now he had brought out his pet cat. Mani worriedly asked if it would work, reminding them that Subai's opponent was a wind attribute ability user. However, Zhou calmly told them not to rush and just watch because that was no ordinary cat. Mingkun laughed and told Subai to just bring out the turtle instead, but Subai casually sat down on his stool and told Bai not to hit too hard, reminding it that this was just a match, not a battlefield. Bai then let out a loud growl, releasing its tiger shadow. Mingkun, now sweating, wondered if the shadow had been his imagination, but before he could react, Bai suddenly transformed into its white tiger form in an instant and leaped toward Mingkun. Stuttering in shock, Mingkun shouted that it had gotten bigger. The audience was stunned, realizing that Bai was not just a cat, it was a massive tiger. They watched in awe as Bai launched a lightning-fast attack on Mingkun in the arena. Yongqiang asked Qingshu if he had seen that correctly. Had Subai's cat actually transformed into a white tiger? But Qingshu simply asked if that tiger was Subai's second tamed beast. Tianxiang, shocked, questioned how it was possible, knowing that even for a silver rank beast tamer, taming a second beast was extremely difficult. Zhou replied that it seemed Subai had more secrets than they knew. Meanwhile, Mingkun managed to wrap his sharp blade with wind energy and slashed at Bai's neck. However, he was shocked to realize that it was just an afterimage. He shouted in disbelief, wondering how that white tiger could be so fast. Bai was now circling around him while he remained in the center, trying to focus. Mingkun, refusing to believe it, yelled that there was no way Bai's speed could surpass the wind. Desperate, he shifted his target and declared that as long as he defeated Subai, he would win. Mingkun then dashed towards Subai, shouting for him to die. However, Subai remained seated calmly. Before Mingkun could get any closer, Bai suddenly appeared in front of him. Mingkun, in shock, screamed that it was impossible. Bai then softly slashed at him, sending him flying out of the stage. Mingkun crashed onto the ground, and the host immediately announced that Subai was the winner. The audience was stunned. They couldn't believe that a mid-tier bronze-level fighter had just defeated a silver-rank captain from a prestigious university. Some questioned if it was real because it had been almost complete domination. One professor asked why it felt like Subai's white tiger was even fiercer than his turtle, but another professor simply questioned what was up with that massive tiger and why it was so ferocious. Meanwhile, the crowd erupted in cheers for Subai and Bai. At the judges' panel, the bald judge admitted that he had never heard of Subai before and asked which year Subai was in at Jiangzhou Martial Arts University. The gray-haired judge, instead of answering, asked if he was right in thinking that even the top students from elite universities in the capital and the army weren't that strong. The bald judge found it unbelievable that Jiangzhou Martial Arts University had actually produced such a monster this year. The gray-haired judge added that Jiangzhou Martial Arts University was about to rise. Meanwhile, in the Imperial City Martial Arts University rest area, the Imperial students watching the match scoffed, calling the guy from Luohe Martial Arts University too weak. They were irritated that a country bumpkin like Su Bai had brought 2 tamed beasts and was freeloading on their buffet, which was worth tens of thousands. Swearing that if they met Su Bai, they wouldn't let him off easy, they grew even more frustrated. Their captain, Cao Zixuan, told his team that Su Bai was too cocky, so if they faced him in the semifinals, they should beat him to death. His teammates agreed, determined that Su Bai needed to be taught a lesson. A moment later, Su Bai won again, as Bai pressed his opponent down on the floor, forcing him to forfeit in fear. He then secured another victory when Bai pushed his second opponent out of the stage with its tail. His winning streak continued as Xiao Ba easily shattered his third opponent's barrier and threw him out of the stage as well. The host congratulated Jiangzhou Martial University for advancing to the top 4, prompting the audience to cheer loudly for Su Bai. Zhou cried tears of joy, shouting that heaven had eyes and that Jiangzhou Martial University had finally made it to the top 4. Qingshu praised Su Bai for a job well done, while his other teammates proudly cheered, declaring that no one could dare look down on Jiangzhou Martial University anymore. Zhou approached Su Bai, telling him that he had truly exceeded expectations and was the greatest contributor to Jiangzhou Martial University in centuries. Su Bai humbly responded that it was his duty. Zhou continued, saying that making it to the top 4 had completed their mission and that this achievement would be the most glorious chapter in Jiangzhou Martial University's history. He then assured everyone that their contributions would be richly rewarded. Su Bai was shocked upon hearing this and asked how their mission was already complete when the top 4 matches were still ahead. He suspected that Zhou planned to hand over the championship's billion-worth resources to the top-tier schools without a fight, but he wasn't going to accept that. Zhou explained that their initial goal had been to secure a spot in the top 6, with hopes of making it to the top 4. Now that they had accomplished both, their objective was fulfilled. He then asked Su Bai if he was seriously thinking of challenging the 3 top-tier universities. Qingshu, equally surprised, questioned the idea, but then confidently responded that there was no reason not to challenge them. He pointed at Modu Martial University and insisted that their university gate alone had cost 1.8 billion, and even if Jiangzhou reached 4th place, they would never dare to be so extravagant. He argued that they should aim for 1st place and rebuild their own university gate, as they could not let down the people of Jiangzhou and had to strive for the top. Qingshu agreed, adding that they could not give up so easily. Yongqiang and Tianxiang voiced their support as well. Tianxiang, despite often finding Su Bai annoying, admitted that his performance made him a worthy captain and entrusted him with arranging the top 4 matches. Zhou praised their enthusiasm and courage, telling them that their determination was commendable. He instructed them to return and rest so they could prepare for tomorrow's top 4 matches and fight for 1st place. As they left the venue, Zhou watched them go, shaking his head with a smile, thinking that they were still young and impulsive for daring to challenge the 3 top-tier schools. Later, at the Dragon Nation's Supreme Military Command, a man reported that the 100 Universities League was about to enter the top 4 finals, expected to conclude in 2 days. Meanwhile, military preparations for the counterattack against the myriad races were complete. The forces had gathered at the front lines and were ready to launch the offensive at any moment. The captain praised the team for their efforts and officially announced to the higher-ups that once the 100 Universities League concluded, the counterattack against the myriad races would begin. Furthermore, all students would be deployed to the battlefield. The higher-ups agreed without hesitation, declaring that they would avenge the tens of thousands of students and mentors who had died. They vowed that those who dared to offend the Dragon Nation, no matter how far they ran, would be punished. The next morning, at the Modu Hotel, Su Bai was in his room cultivating with Luofan's book while his pets were busy eating. Suddenly, he released a powerful surge of energy, activating the Holy Beast armament. The entire hotel shook violently, shocking even him and his pets. Startled, Su Bai wondered what had just happened when a system notification popped up, congratulating him on successfully comprehending the Beast Tamer's exclusive talent skill, transposition. The system explained that within a range of 1 kilometer, Su Bai and his tamed beasts could swap positions instantly, ignoring all restrictions. Su Bai was stunned. He realized that this meant he and Xiao Ba could instantly swap places. He wondered what kind of skill this was, but after a moment, he decided not to overthink it. More skills couldn't hurt, and it might have unexpected effects on the battlefield. He then grabbed his bag and called his pets, saying it was time to go. Dressed and ready, he held both of them and declared that they were going to challenge the 3 top-tier schools. Later at the venue, the host addressed the audience, announcing that after a day of intense battles, the 100 Universities League had finally entered the top 4 competition stage. She then introduced the Great Wall Guardian Military Academy, which was about to take the stage. She explained that the Great Wall Guardian Military Academy was originally a military base for the Great Wall Guardians, established in 1907. It was one of the first military bases erected on the Myriad Races battlefield. Over its 94-year history, the Myriad Races had launched hundreds of campaigns against the Great Wall Guardian Military Academy, but its students and mentors had fought to the death, killing countless Myriad race beasts and strong warriors, and yet the academy still stood tall. The host added that the motto of the Great Wall Guardian Military Academy was, "As long as the Myriad Races exist, the Great Wall will never fall." She then told the audience that the strongest human, the only king-level expert, Ni Qing, was the honorary principal of the Great Wall Guardians. Because of him, the strongest warriors of the Myriad Races dared not set foot in the territory of the academy. As the strongest martial arts university in the Dragon Nation and the frontline barrier of humanity, the Great Wall Guardians were well deserved of their title. The audience acknowledged that the Great Wall Guardian Military Academy was a city of heroes, and every student inside was considered a hero. They also knew that Modu and Capital Martial University were already incredibly powerful, yet the Great Wall Guardian Academy was even stronger, making them imagine how terrifying their strength must be. A chubby man in the crowd asked if the host had said they only had 5 team members and no substitutes. Another man scoffed at him, reminding him that this was the Great Wall Guardian Military Academy. They didn't need substitutes. Joe explained to his students that king-level expert Ni Qing was the bulwark of humanity, and that even having the honor of fighting against the Great Wall Guardian Military Academy was an achievement. However, Subai simply asked Joe when he would be able to become the bulwark of humanity like Ni Qing. The host then announced that the top 4 matches were about to begin. The draw results were as follows: Great Wall Guardian Military Academy versus Capital Martial University in the first match, and Modu Martial University versus Jiangzhou Martial University in the second match. In the resting area, Zixuan, while playing with his phone, told his team that the match was boring because they were up against Jiangzhou Martial University, and he couldn't even be bothered to make a move against such weak opponents. A blue-haired woman expressed her disappointment, saying that facing Jiangzhou wouldn't even be a glorious victory. A blonde-haired woman agreed, calling Jiangzhou nothing more than troublemakers and questioning how they had even made it to the top 4. A male teammate then told Zixuan to let him take the match, swearing that he would take down all of Jiangzhou in one go. A moment later, the host called out Han Zhan, the captain of the Great Wall Guardians. A lord-level expert and the grandson of General Han Dong, Han Zhan stood on the stage, clad in purple-gold armor forged from diamond-level cores. Without hesitation, Han Zhan turned to Wang Yang from Capital Martial University and told him that they shouldn't waste time. He then directly challenged Wang Yang, asking if he dared to fight. The audience erupted with excitement, realizing that the match between Capital Martial University and the Great Wall Military Academy was starting with a captain versus captain showdown, a king versus king match. Wang Yang leaped onto the stage, unfazed by the challenge. The captain of Capital Martial University, he casually asked Han Zhan why he was making such a big deal out of it. The crowd, especially the women, cheered loudly, calling Wang Yang their idol and saying how handsome he was. Zhou turned to Subai, commenting that the match was heating up right from the start and that youth was truly wonderful. However, Subai simply asked Zhou if Wang Yang was really that handsome because he didn't see it. Then, he subtly elbowed Yongqiang and told him to go up first and show their opponents what they were made of. Yongqiang, confused, asked if he could really do it. Meanwhile, on the stage, Han Zhan took his position, confidently shouting that they should begin. He then told Wang Yang that he would allow him to make the first move.